Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast. It's me, Colin Moriarty. I'm here again because Dagan's never coming back to work, apparently. I'm joined by three more of our cast members in our orbit here, hence the name Constellation. Let's go around the horn and say hello to everyone. Hello. Micah, my wife. Good to see you, my dear. Let's start with you.
Hello. Yeah, as we were chatting with Lockmore before we started, another hot day today. We actually have like a heat advisory in our area, which is just funny to me because I'm used to it during winter where it's like, oh, wind chill factor of whatever. And it feels 10 degrees colder. But having like a heat factor and them saying it's 93, but it feels like 103. And I'm like, this is just, it's too much for me. I wasn't made for this. But this is why when Colin mentions going further south, I'm like, this is the limit. This is as far south as I go. I can't imagine it being worse than this.
It's I don't mind it because obviously we have AC, but again, we were talking before the show, and we'll get to Lockmore next. No AC in much of the world, which is just incredible to me. It's like American ostentatiousness, but I also think it's just necessary. Like we can't. I've said this before. I cannot imagine what people were doing in the Southwest of the United States 100 years ago. Nonetheless, like the Pueblo Indians and all these, like, what are you guys doing? Just go somewhere else. It's a desert. Lockmore, welcome to the show. How are you today, my friend?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm doing awesome. I'm so glad I don't live where you guys live because I would literally die. I've been to Georgia once and I couldn't go outside. I remember just dying there. Like it was so humid. Like it's hot here, but we don't have like the humidity you guys have. So I've been to Vegas too, and I could handle it there because it wasn't very humid. But when I get to where you guys live, I would literally die. I can't handle it.
Georgia.
Yeah. Other than that, I'm doing fine. Thank you.
Good. The Deep South. We're glad you're not here either. We have more than enough immigrants in the United States. Brad Ellis, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me. The high is going to be 86 today. So not too bad. A little annoying, but not too bad. So yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah. It says 96 here on my computer, but it says 93 on my watch. Who knows what's true and what's not? If we finish this quick enough, I will be able to go outside and float around in the pool a little bit and read a book.
Nice.
I'm reading Project Hail Mary, which is Andy Weir's third book. Andy Weir's the guy who wrote The Martian. And I read The Martian and I read his last book, Artemis. And so I'm reading this book now. And it's actually funny that we're talking about this because before the show, I was noting, I'm like, I'm old enough now. I'm going to be 40 later in the year, right? Where I'm like, I don't need to see ice core samples and historical temperature data. It's like the Earth is definitely getting hotter. Like things are mysterious. I don't know if you guys saw Hurricane Beryl is like the most powerful Gulf hurricane ever recorded this early in the season, meaning that the water is warmer. And it's getting a little crazy out there, but it's ironic because, and this isn't a huge spoiler, I didn't know what Project Hail Mary was about at all when I started reading it. You learn about this very early in the book. It's about a single cell organism alien species that's siphoning energy from the sun, and it's only going to take like a few percentage of the power of the sun, but that would be catastrophic for Earth and how they have to solve the problem. And it's really good. And I'm like, man, we could use a little bit of that alien life right now to siphon some energy off the sun. It's getting scorched out there. Tell you what. But all the plants are really happy outside. The Earth is greening. I'm of the mind that global warming can't be all downside. And one of the upsides is that the Earth is getting greener. The plants and the trees and it loves the carbon. We don't love it so much though. And on Sacred Symbols, you'll appreciate this, Brad. We had a guy write in saying that he's going to Palm Springs for a bachelor party and it's going to be 127 degrees. And I was like, dude, don't even bother. Because I've been to Palm Springs when it's been 105, 110, and it's a fucking nightmare. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, don't do it. Why would you do that to your friends?
I know.
Why would you do that to them?
Palm Springs it's cool, but it's like not that cool. You don't need to go there.
Cool.
No, it's fine. It's beautiful.
Cool. It's fine.
And I was remarking that it used to be like Airbnb Central. That was like one of the most famous Airbnb spots, and they've banned Airbnb in Palm Springs now.
Yeah.
So it's like the exact opposite now. But if you want to know what Palm Springs is like, it's a fucking town in a desert. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to go there.
Yeah. There's plenty of other towns you can do that just like that.
All right. Where's Dagan? No one knows. No one knows where Dagan is. He's getting readjusted back to his work schedule. So I think he's promised me, and who knows, but he said he'll come and host the show next week. So
we'll see
here I am. One more show with me. I'm sorry. I know some of you are tired of me, I'm sure. All right. Well, it's good to be here with everyone, and good to see this crew of people. Very nice crew. We'll have a varied level of topics. I have my email up here with everyone's topics on it. Okay. Micah, you have a mysterious one, so I'm eager to get into yours first. I had to give you a die in order to do yours, and I went into my bag of old D&D dice that I've had since I was a kid.
Ooh.
And I gave her the 12-sided die, my original yellow 12-sided die from when I was in 6th grade, I think. So treat it well and take it away.
Yeah, you can smell the virginity on this die. It's still quite potent. All right, my friends. We're going to get into something a little interesting today. I told you guys up front, there's no prep required for this, no props. For our audio listeners, you're not missing anything with this particular game. There's no whiteboards or anything. All right. So let's get right into it. 3 bold adventurers stand before me. Bradford, the brave, Lockmort, the loyal, and Colin, the courageous, are on the noble quest for the holiest of artifacts, a $50 gift card to the Cracker Barrel. Will these 3 heroes acquire the treasure they seek? We shall see. Your party has purchased a map from a merchant directing you to the fabled treasure. Will the map lead to riches or to your doom? You each have 10 health points. And so I'm going to keep track of those. I'm going to be doing the dice rolling as well, because I looked online for like digital dice, and it was just a little more complicated than I wanted to get into for this. So I'm going to be rolling the die for your various decisions. And first turn, Locke. You are at a small roadside shop to prepare for the journey. Beans for sale, get your beans here. You hear the merchants crying out. Locke, you may purchase 1 item, choose between these 2, and choose very carefully.
Damn.
You can pick shields for all 3 of you, or 1 corn dog.
Damn. Well, that's a tough one. I guess shields in a normal situation, shields seem like the right choice, but because it's you, Micah, I'm guessing corn dog is the right answer here. So we're buying corn dogs, I guess.
Corn dog, all right. I'm writing it on our party sheet. I have a sheet here where I'm keeping track of everyone's HP. I have the choices that I'm going to circle as we go. I got very organized for this. All right. That's our first decision down. Colin, you are traveling down a busy road. The merchants with overladen carts are making the travel very slow. Come on, let's get a move on here, Colin yells. Do you consult your map for an alternate route, or do you remain patient and stay on the main road?
No, I consult the map and try to find an alternate route.
All right, so you're taking the side road. We got a roll for that.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
All right, the side road takes you speedily to the inn. A very wise decision.
Nice. Good RNG.
Nice.
All right. Bradford, you arrive at the inn. A kindly old lady is buzzing about, showing travelers to their rooms. My, aren't you a tall drink of mead? What brings you to my inn? You tell the old innkeep that you are seeking the mythical barrel bucks and following a map that you bought not long ago. Oh, adventurers, eh? You don't need a map, I know the way. Brad, you may choose to follow your map or the old lady's directions. Which do you choose?
How does this old lady look? Does she look put together?
I'm picturing like a Studio Ghibli old lady, like real big hair, exaggerated features, maybe like fortune teller looking.
Does she always speak in rhyme?
No.
I'll take her advice, I guess. All right, I'll listen up.
Okay. You arrive at the forest clearing safely. A forest nymph appears. She has the tail of a goat and the eyes of a goat, and she keeps saying, bah. Brad marries the forest nymph. You gain 1 HP.
No.
So we gotta add that to Brad.
Wait, how did this happen?
Good
I
job.
didn't agree to this. I
Brad
married her?
I wrote this, all right? You like
All
the
right.
forest nymph a lot.
Okay. Please tell me she's hot at least or something.
I was wondering what the hell you've been writing the last couple of days.
I know. I came up with this idea Tuesday night, and I had to really motor to get it all done here. And it's not even going to be a very long campaign, but it's because of all the choices. But we'll talk about that at the end. Okay. Still your turn, Brad.
Is she hot?
The goat?
Yeah.
The goat wife?
Yeah.
Is a goat hot?
Well, you said she had the eyes and the tail, the ears of a goat?
Yeah, and the eyes. Well, that's just me alluding to the fact that it's not a forest nymph at all, Brad. It's a goat.
It's literally just a goat? Okay, well, I don't know what sick shit you're cooking up, Micah, so I don't want to marry this goat if possible. I want to refuse. I'm not a furry.
You already did, Brad.
Too late.
This is ridiculous. All right.
Okay. Locke has started to develop a slight cough. Colin and Brad are worried. He needs all his strength for the next day's excursion. Locke assures them that he's fine, but Brad decides to covertly try and medicate Locke with the goal of helping him overcome the illness sooner. I'm going to roll to determine if Brad chose the right dose of medicine.
Uh-oh. Oh, no.
Oh, all right. Brad chooses an appropriate amount of healing tonic.
Nice.
But Lockmort wakes up the next day feeling a bit clumsy, a side effect of the tonic that Brad had forgotten about.
Thanks, I gave you
Brad.
lean. I gave you lean.
All right, Lockmort. From the forest clearing, you head west towards the next big city. According to the map, you will find a man here to ferry you across the river on his raft. You begin asking around the main square and are told that the ferrymaster no longer accepts money. You must give him a gift to secure passage across the river. Ass, gas, or grass, he shouts. Locke, you may choose to give him one of these items: a flagon of ale, newly made wool socks, or Brad's goat wife.
Oh, we give him Brad's wife for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, no question.
Thank you.
Unburden
that old ball and chain.
The ferrymaster wholeheartedly accepts his new bride and disappears into his hut. He will not return for 3 days. You must roll to determine if the weather conditions will still be favorable when he returns. And I shall now roll.
Oh.
The weather is favorable, and the group crosses without incident. Locke slips on the riverbank while trying to dismount the raft. He is lost to the current.
Oh, damn.
Oh,
goodbye.
Locke!
It was fun.
Wow, it's didn't expect to lose a party member so quickly.
It's
well,
very
Colin,
realistic.
You got some big decisions here, Colin.
Yeah.
Colin and Brad walk a short ways down the riverbank. Locke has not yet turned up. Jason! Jason! They yell for some reason. Suddenly, a skeletal knight appears from the nearby woods. You will need to fight him. Colin, you may throw a large boulder the size of a small boulder, or you can throw a fireball. Which do you choose?
The boulder. I'm an American. That's how we measure.
Ooh, okay. The attack hits. The enemy staggers back, but is able to whistle a signal for more skeletons to appear.
The skeleton can whistle? He doesn't have any lips.
Yeah. This is a magic skeleton, Colin.
He has. I mean, the fact that he's walking around, he doesn't have any meat either.
Yeah,
all right.
Sure.
With more enemies arriving soon, Colin, do you choose to keep looking for Locke or do you abandon him?
No, we'll keep looking for him. We can't. No man left behind.
All right, we're gonna roll for it. Oh, all right. You find Locke in good spirits, but he has been seriously injured. You must find a healer before he deteriorates further. All right, Bradley.
Yes.
You arrive in town and must find a healer for Locke. Time is of the essence. You must decide quickly. Do you go directly to the inn, or do you go to the town square to look for an apothecary shop?
Oh, I look for the apothecary shop.
All right, we're going to the apothecary. You get Locke to the town square as quickly as possible. The apothecary shop is immediately in view. You've found the healer.
Yes.
The healer demands that Brad hand over the treasure map as payment, or else Brad will have to arm wrestle him as payment instead. Which do you choose?
I don't give up my treasure maps. We're arm wrestling this guy. Sorry,
Locke. Let's roll for the arm wrestling. Brad wins.
Yes.
Locke is healed. The party may proceed on their quest. Okay, let me just get to the next piece here.
Great job, Brad.
So far, so good.
Thank you. You should have bought us shields. Maybe this wouldn't have happened, Locke. Instead of a corn dog.
Well, we'll see. Maybe they come in. Maybe they come in handy.
Corn dog's
later.
all soggy now because he fell in the river.
You don't disparage the corn dog. You don't know what it's for. Okay, Lockmort. The party heads out of the bustling town and onto the final leg of the journey, the winding forest path. The map has a smudge near where their treasure is claimed to be. You must decide now to go on the path through the belching bog or the fairy's den. Which do you choose?
Well, so far I've been pretty much a liability, so I always make the wrong choice, I guess. So I would say we're going through the fairy den. Was it fairy den? So
Yes,
pick the other one. Pick the bog then, I guess.
You want to go through the belching bog?
Well, I would pick the fairy den, but I'm not a good decision maker. We've already established. So go through the bog. Yeah.
A demonic heron appears. It is time, my dear friends, you must fight. Locke is first. He can cast wind or ice. Which do you choose?
Ice.
All right. Okay. The attack hits. The enemy tries to strike back and misses. The missed attack staggers them. It's time to strike. All right, I gotta scroll down a bit here. Colin, it is your turn. You may cast fire or fart magic. Which do you choose?
Oh, fart magic.
All right.
My specialty.
The attack devastates the enemy. The enemy strikes back with a lightning strike. Colin is alive but must fall back to administer a healing potion. Brad, it all comes down to this moment. It is your turn.
Oh, shit.
With your dear friends by your side, you know that you cannot fail. Now, this is the special moment because you have the corn dog. The corn dog, in the party's food supply, suddenly turns into a sword of great power. Brad readies himself to penetrate the fiend with his hot dog sword. And so we're going to go ahead and roll for that, Brad. We're going to see how this corn dog treats you guys.
Did you just say he's going to penetrate him with his hot dog sword?
Yes. Yes, I did. The attack strikes true. The enemy explodes into a giant fireball. Brad is too close to it. Lockmore uses the last of his strength to block Brad from the flames. He ascends to the holy realm, smiling down at his friends. They tearfully watch him go.
Wow,
the battlefield is
really
calm once more.
Yeah.
Wow, Locke, what a good friend.
Well,
You're welcome.
we still have a choice to make. As the battle concludes, a soft golden glow emits from the bussy of a big oak tree nearby. In the tree hole, the Cracker Barrel gift card is found. The tree's bussy begins to speak to Colin and Brad and gives you a choice. You may take the gift card and go get a delicious meal at the barrel, or the tree can resurrect Locke. Which do you choose?
Oh.
Take the card, guys.
Should we just, cut our losses and go get a nice meal or something?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, that sounds good.
You're going to leave him dead?
Yeah.
Well, he was kind of a creep, so we don't really know. Dangerous society.
I saved you with those corn
Well,
dogs.
because you were tripping on lean still, so you didn't even know what was going on.
Fair.
All right. Colin and Brad decide to leave Locke to his eternal rest. They say a few kind words in his honor and vow to get the new pancake tacos now at Cracker Barrel. It's what Locke would have wanted. The end.
That's it?
Beautiful.
Pancake tacos?
This is the funny thing about doing this, right? I wrote this for like 3 days, and it gave me a lot of respect for how video games work because you guys saw like a quarter of the potential options. Like, here's what happens, right? Locke can die as early as like turn 5, right? And then at that point, so Colin has the choice to look for Locke or abandon him. If you abandon him, that's a whole other scenario, right? If Brad chooses to go to the inn instead, that's a whole other timeline. Like, and then you get down to like turn 7, and the different timelines I have are Locke is alive and has the map. Locke is alive with no map. Locke is dead. Like, it gets so crazy. And it's like, it's so much to write. Like, I wrote, like, it's like over 3,000 words I have here. And we got through it in like 10 minutes, right? Because you only see a quarter of the scenario. So this was like a fun little thing to do and could kind of get a very rudimentary understanding of how branching pathways in games actually work. And like, because you realize, okay, I'll do this, this, and this. And then it's like, it just exponentially grows. I originally had 3 item choices in the first turn, and it was getting so unwieldy of what to do with the third item, for example, that I was like, I ended up taking it out. It really did just give me a nice little appreciation for games like Witcher 3 that have such deep like character choice and pathways and all the different ways things can go. I'm disappointed you guys didn't kill Locke because he turns into a vengeful ghost, and that's where some of his best lines were. But you know, as an example, if Lockmort dies, and then if you guys abandon him, he tries to burn down the inn. And he says, "Serves you right, you dirty French fucks." And I didn't even get to read that. You know, I really tried to put some Lockmort into this, but it really did just give me like, wow, this is so much work, and you see a quarter of it at the end.
Yeah, awesome. Like, great job.
Yeah.
Do you want to do dungeon mastering?
It was fun. I mean, it was fun. What I want to do, so here's the thing: when I first had this idea, I was really intimidated to start it. And I did try to find, I wasn't looking for ideas. I was looking for a framework of building a campaign, which I did not find online very easily. Like, what I kept finding was ideas. It's like, I don't need quest ideas. I just kind of want the basic outline of this, this, this. So I ended up having to just make it myself. But it was really fun. But seeing the average D&D campaign is 6 hours. I'm like, 6 hours? It took me 3 days to write this, and we only had 10 minutes worth of content by the time you take all your turns.
The 6 hour part would have also been a small fraction of the story you just told. Typically, we moved very fast. You know.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I didn't have you guys prepared to act out your parts or anything. You're not. I didn't have a costume. I was trying to think if I had anything in my closet, like some sort of silly medieval hat or anything. I don't have a lot of hats in the roster, really. So, but I'm curious for you guys, just to open this up as a little bit of discussion. Do any of you guys have experience with D&D writing campaigns, participating? Obviously, Colin on the game design side of things. This really was a very fun exercise. But as soon as I started getting into it, it's oh my God, this is so much. And then there's the slight disappointment that I'm sure game designers might feel of, oh, I hope they choose this pathway. And then when it doesn't happen, it's no, that was the good pathway. This was the fun one. So I'm curious, I saw you nodding, Locke. You have any experience with D&D and stuff like that?
Well, not in writing, but I used to play D&D every week in high school. Every Friday night, we would get together with a couple of friends, and we would play. And I love that time. I love D&D. It's so cool to me. Not what it became these days. It's sadly a bit different now.
Did you see the art of the new art that they released of the dwarves or whatever? It's so bad, dude.
I gotta find
ridiculous nonsense. Fucking alienating everyone who's not them. But yeah, no, I love D&D. I think you did a great job because it was funny and it was personal. I think that's the hardest part, right? Making it personal towards the players, which is what you did, which is awesome. But have you played Baldur's Gate 3 by any chance or not yet?
No, I haven't played it because it intimidates me because I don't know anything about it. And so I was I don't know if I'll like this or not. I wasn't sure.
If you like The Witcher 3, I think we've had this conversation before.
You'll like it, Micah.
If you like The Witcher 3, you'll love Baldur's Gate 3 because it has so many options. And I read an interview with the developers or with the main guy, Sven Vinky, a couple of weeks ago, where he said that they had a whole story for people who chose to play as halflings, but almost nobody chose that race to play as. So like we just experienced in your story, like half the story wasn't experienced by players, but they had like this whole crafted world for those people too, which is so cool, especially in video games, because The Witcher 3 is amazing too, where you always have like option A or option B, and then it leads to something else, which is cool. But in Baldur's Gate 3, you have option A, B, C, D, E, F, and then it leads into other stuff again. So yeah, amazing. I love it when video games do that. Those are my favorite type of games. But I think you, especially Micah, would love Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, I'll have to give it a try at some point. I got to get over the intimidation that I feel. But no, I appreciate you saying that I made this personalized, partly because the original lineup today, we were supposed to have Jean, and Jean had to work in the office today. So Lockmort thankfully was available, but I had already written a good portion of this, and I was like, I got to get rid of Jean, and I got to get Lockmort in the mix instead, you know. And it was like doing a find and replace at first, but like just to get all the names correct, and then it's like, oh, now we got to change the lines to things Locke would say. But yeah, I adore games with player choice, especially like I love my visual novels that you can end up with just so completely different outcomes. Of course, by the end, it's meaningful player choice is what I really enjoy. I dislike it in games where you make a choice, you find out later it really didn't matter, and it's just like the game's going to go the same path anyways. It's like, no, I want to see how this really will turn out. Like, you guys didn't get to the brothel. The brothel was another, you know, location in this game that you guys didn't even find. You know, there's just, it's a weird, like disappointment's the wrong word for it, but I'm like, you guys did this like the worst playthrough you could have possibly had of this because you did too well. You made good decisions.
Yeah, we didn't get any bad rolls.
I was hoping you'd abandon Lockmort on the riverbank. I was hoping Colin would be like, no, just leave him, but then he didn't.
Too loyal for that.
So,
thank you.
Well, we did leave him for pancake tacos.
So. Well, he had died. I mean, he took the fireball at that point. I mean, what are we going to do? We're going to care for this person now for the rest of our lives? He's like a fucking...
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, thank you for killing me twice, Micah.
Resurrect him. Like, that one shocks me, actually. I did not expect you guys to leave him at the end and not resurrect him. That one surprised me.
How many times were we supposed to save him? We saved him like twice already.
The tree was going to do it.
He's a burden.
He saved your life, Brad. He stepped in front of that fire for you.
I had enough.
Right, so you have to move on and live.
I just divorced my goat wife, so...
Right. I know, you gave your goat wife to the fairy master, and I don't even know if you actually got divorced, so you might still owe money for that. I don't know.
No, she brought home the money. She owes me money.
Brad, do you have any experience with D&D?
Yes. When I was at Easy Hours, we had a D&D show. And I played D&D for years, like probably like 3 or 4 years. Yeah, I love D&D. It's super fun. But yeah, I have a ton of experience with, well, not a ton of, but I also like CRPGs like Locke. I'm a newer to the genre, so I do love decision makings. I always remember Witcher 2 when you make the choice, either Yorvith or the other guy's name. I forgot his name.
Roach.
Yes.
Roach, but it like changes like where you go to for like the second chapter or something like that. I always thought that stuff was so cool. And I love when games do that kind of stuff. Yeah, you do miss out on a lot of stuff, but it's cool if you want to replay them. But if you're a one and done kind of person, maybe not for you, but I think I'm totally cool with missing stuff in games like that. I think that's really fun. So yes, I love all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree that it really depends on the game as to whether or not I'll replay it for either a different outcome or just to see what's different. Like Unicorn Overlord, for example, is such a long game, has so many different dialogue options because you can pair your character up with like a million different people, basically get married and whatever. But it is such a long game that there's no way I'm replaying it anytime soon. And so it's like, I want to see some of the other ways that things could turn out, but it's just too long of a game. I say that though, while Witcher 3 I've played, almost 3 full times. So maybe it's just more so of like how, how invested I get in it.
Yeah, it's The Witcher 3. What are you going to do? You're going to play it again. It's the way it goes.
Exactly. Colin, now obviously I borrowed your D&D dice, but between that and the game design, what part of like creating these things do you enjoy, or did you have a favorite, memory of playing D&D with your friends, eating pizza down at the sock hop, getting poodle skirts and whatnot?
Right. Yeah, because I was of course doing this in the 1950s. Yeah, I mean, I played a lot of D&D. It was introduced to me by a friend of mine named Eric. I've talked about this guy in the past. We called him Eric for many years. It's his middle name, and his name is Reinhardt, which is his dad's name. So they called him Eric instead. And now he goes by Reinhardt in his adult life, but I don't know I can't do that. So I ate dinner with him. I met him for dinner a few years ago when I was in California, and I was like, he's like, oh man, no one calls me that anymore. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know you by this. Like, your dad is Reinhardt. Anyway, he's the one who introduced me to D&D, and I have a very vivid memory of going and getting what was called D&D comes in waves. So there's like Dungeons and Dragons from the 70s and into the 80s, and then there's Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and then there's Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2, and that's what I got into. And that was like a long running version 2 that people played for a long time. I think they're on like version 6 or 7 at this point. You have to like basically rebuy all your books. So I come from the era of like THAC0 and Armor Class and all the things that I think they've removed from THAC0 is to hit Armor Class 0. It's like a specific role, like a very weird stat. And so I come from that era, and I have very vivid memories of going and buying the first quest with my dad on Long Island and just falling in love with it. And actually some of the dice I have, I think the dice you have, the yellow set, is from that box, which is kind of cool. My friend Eric was a pretty good dungeon master. I played in different waves. Like I played a little bit in middle school, a little bit in high school, and then I played quite a bit in my early adult life when I was in California. And it is cool. The dungeon mastering is like a very difficult thing, and it all really revolves around how prepared and interesting the dungeon master is. If you don't have, you can also buy modules, which is pretty cool, where they're kind of set up for you already. And that was a big thing early in D&D. But as a writer, I don't want to write this kind of stuff. I would find this really annoying to deal with. I want to just write like a linear story, like my story. And there's multiple reasons for that. Number one is BioWare has gave this, I don't know if it was a GDC speech a long time ago or something, where they were like, 92% of the people that played Mass Effect 1 played as a Paragon and 8% played as a Renegade. So we put all of this work into this Renegade thing that fewer than 1 in 10 people even experienced. And there is something stupid about that. It's cool to have an option like that, but it's like, why even bother if no one's going to experience it? It's cool that it's there, but it was kind of a waste of your time. And I totally get it, because playing as a Renegade in the Mass Effect games is so difficult from a personality and sociability standpoint, where I'll never forget when Shepard punches that female news anchor in the face.
Yeah.
Because I played all the Mass Effect games twice. One, because I actually wrote the guides for the first 2, and then I ended up reviewing the third one at IGN. And I would play as Paragon, and then I'd play as a Renegade. And the Renegade stuff is just so tough. I think it actually speaks to normal people having a difficult time or not wanting to be bad, which speaks to my overall theory about people, that they're generally good. For people that are into game design, this stuff is actually visualized really interesting in engine, depending on what engine you're using and what you're looking at. But often it's literally just a spider web. If you like look at the visualization from the designer's point of view, not getting into the weeds of the programming and how everything's attached to it, but from if you are just visualizing it, it often is a web with like this box, and these are the things, and this is the dialogue choices, and then it has like these tendrils off of it. And that's how the game works off of those different things. It literally works the way you think. And so it's pretty cool from that perspective. D&D is awesome. I feel like this is a whole nother topic, but I feel like nerd culture, like deep nerd culture, not nerd pop culture, like I think games have often and always really been, it's just been co-opted by a very unfun people. Yeah. And I know this is happening in Warhammer in D&D and in other spaces. And it's like, it kind of sucks that it's losing its, in exchanging being a niche item, like D&D was not something you did unless you were a huge nerd. Broadening it out, I think, has kind of diluted and ruined these games. And when I was seeing, I still know how to play my version of D&D, but seeing the way people play D&D now, I'm like, wow, it's actually so much more simple, which in some way is cool, but in some way it isn't. And I can't imagine playing in the digital era either, with RNG generator, like, random number generators and digital statistics, where we would go to the library, like in the module, there would be a character sheet. And you could use it once, but we would go in, and anyone does, we go to the library and pay like 5 cents per copy, and then just copy a shit ton of them. Yeah. And you would have it would be like 8 HP, and then you get hit and you'd have to erase it and put like 6 HP. And then eventually your paper got so fucked up. It's like, all right, let's take a moment and redo and start new sheets, transfer all the numbers over. There's like very cool memories of that I feel like are probably a little old today. I'm sure people still play like that to some degree, but that's removing. It's weird that people have computers in front of their faces, that they even do this stuff on Twitch and all that. It's like, it's cool. And it's obviously broadened and popularized the whole thing in a major way. I remember being in LA and seeing billboards for Critical Role. It's like billboards on the highway for this. And it's like, wow, man, this is totally mainstream, but it's not the way I would want to play. And I actually we did a Critical Role that when I was like Kind of Funny, I did a campaign, like a mini campaign with them, and it was cool, but I'm also not into it for the acting kind of part of it. And like, I literally like the stats and like just seeing what happens, like getting further into the campaign. So it's all about playing with the right people. It's very similar to playing a sport or something. If you're not playing with the right people, it's not going to be fun. If you're playing with the right people that care and are into it, even if they're not good at it, I think it means a lot. And there is no being good or bad either.
Right.
And I do love especially the 20. A great memory of mine is the 20-sided die, and you would roll 1. So if you were attacking, you would often have a 20-sided die, and it would be, if I recall, it'd be like 13 to 20 is like hit, whatever. 8 to whatever is like kind of grazing, and then but if you roll a 1, it's called a blunder. At least it was in the old D&D games.
Yeah.
And something traumatic happens. Like you swing your sword at the dragon, you accidentally throw it and stab your party member or something like that. And I loved rolling, like when people rolled 1s to see what would happen. So it's a very, very cool game. It's very nostalgic. I know that Stranger Things did a great deal to revive it amongst young people, and there is something really romantic about it, like about like the analog days of making your own fun. And the one thing that I wish I had as a kid that I didn't know existed, and I was like, oh man, I wish this had, and I just didn't know, was I always wanted to play this stuff by myself. Not because I actually was quite sociable when I was a kid, but because it's like, oh, your friends aren't available, but you kind of want to go through it. And I didn't realize that you actually could, that there are an entire series of these things where you could just play by yourself with books and dice rolls and like your own character sheet and kind of just keep track of things yourself. And that would have been so fun, but I never had that as a kid. So if my few friends that played it weren't available, it just wasn't an option, but deep nerd roots in D&D. We owe D&D a lot in video games.
Yeah.
Just like Lord of the Rings is a huge thing for video games. D&D, all the statistics you understand about like hit points and attack power and all that all comes from D&D, like all of it. And if you read about Dragon Quest and Ultima, obviously in the early role-playing games, they're all inspired by it. So, and that obviously in turn inspired things. So now you have like hit points in Mass Effect, and you have hit points in this and that, and it's cool. Also, and I'm going on and on, shout out to non-D&D paper and pencil role-playing games. The Star Wars RPG from the late 80s is legendary. And I really, really love that a lot. But there's a shit ton of them. Cyberpunk began as a late 80s tabletop module. So it's cool that there's there. And I think there's do you guys know what I'm talking about? There's an acronym for a universal game system. I can't remember what it's called, but there's a universal game system where different games are made even by different companies and they're all played the same. And I think that's pretty cool too. So you can kind of like interchange your understanding of things, the supplies you have, your dice, your figures, because some people use figures on maps too. That was the other thing. That's a whole nother, like we didn't have money for that shit. We used to just draw really rudimentary, like I'll draw it. It's like my friend would be like, you're going into a bar, and it would be like, okay, the bar is like this square and there's like tables here. And then the little dots are like people. It's like, what do you do? Like, that's how we would do it. But some people have like really nicely built out maps and figures and and movement rules and all that. We didn't apply any of that. You can play it in a very granular way. Like you're only able to move this much. You're only able to do these many things. You can only carry this much equipment or you're encumbered. Encumbrance comes from D&D. Item encumbrance, which is huge in Fallout and Skyrim. And so anyway, shout out to these games. Very nerdy, very primitive, very attractive. And it all goes back to wargaming, like the original wargaming from the 19th century and into the 20th century, people building these insanely elaborate games And you can read it more about it. There's a shit ton of it on the internet. Like nerdy ass dudes in like suits and ties playing this stuff in like the 30s. It's awesome. It's super cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I want to highlight a couple things you said. One being having the right group, because part of why I felt like I wanted to do this was just being like, okay, this is a group of people I can be silly with. This is a group of people who are going to take, these little stupid jokes the right way, despite the fact that you guys played so well. You didn't see many of them. But it was just like, yeah, this is a group of people that I felt comfortable being silly with. I felt comfortable saying Brad's going to marry a goat. I knew he wouldn't get upset, or having like 3 opportunities to kill Lockmort, essentially. It's like the group was a big part of why this worked, because you guys are just like good sports about things. And it is like, this is, I don't act like ever, right? It's like, I am a generally silly person, but actually like doing a silly voice on purpose, for example, is just like, it made me a little nervous. Like for the first time in months, I was a little nervous to be on the show, because it's like, I have a thing prepared. All right. I didn't even actually use one of my props. I had this Minecraft torch over here that I was going to bring out, but I was too nervous. I'm like, it's too dumb. It's too dumb. Don't do it. Don't do it, And so I have many Minecraft items. I also have like the diamond block. I was going to bring that out. I didn't, because I felt too weird about it, right?
You should.
That would have been cool, yeah.
Well, we were 3/4 of the way there, though, and it's because we had such a fun group for this, and it is just, I'm just like reviewing some of the other things you guys missed out on. There was a whole scene where Brad and Colin sleep under an anti-homeless bench because you can't sleep on top of it. Like, I tried to make a little California in there, but you guys just played too well. You somehow made all the correct decisions. Like, I thought for sure that Brad would just hand over the map, and then he's like, I'm not giving up my map. And it's like, Lockmore's life is on the line. You're not going to give up the map?
No, I was confident we'd save him.
But yeah, this was a very fun exercise, and it did give me such an appreciation for the games that we play. And of course, also, like, choose your own adventure books, a whole other thing. But when I was a kid, I didn't understand them, and I would try to just read them straight. And I was like, this book makes no fucking sense at all. And I remember when one of my friends finally noticed what I was reading, and he's like, oh, how do you like that book? I'm like, it's terrible. It doesn't make any sense. He's like, it says go to page whatever. And I was like, what? And I just completely missed it. And it wasn't Choose Your Own Adventure. It was one of the Goosebumps Choose Your Own Adventure books. That's a very important distinction here.
Yes.
So I'm not that much of an idiot. All right. It was just one of the special edition Goosebumps books. But I remember thinking afterwards, oh, this is the shit. This is really cool. I'm writing my own book, essentially. And that was just a whole other aspect of, wow, piecing all that together in a book. That's like the layers of difficulty here. How long it took me just to write this campaign that took 10 minutes for us to play versus writing an entire book or writing a 100-hour game. This gave me a great appreciation for it. But so thank you guys, though, for playing along with this. And my only regret is that you did so well.
Maybe you'll be a dungeon. You should flex your writing skills. People are always looking for dungeon masters. It's like being a goalie in men's league hockey. Like, no one wants to be the dungeon master.
Right. Play with our 10-year-old, nephew and his friends. They'll love it.
Well, I mean, you could find a group of people to play with, or whatever. I would imagine that there must be. I'm not anywhere in the weeds with this, but there's a service in men's league hockey, to find goalies. And like for people that are playing anywhere, and it's like Goalie Finder or something like that. And I am positive that there's got to be something like that for Dungeon Masters, especially if people pay for it. And I know some people do that. Like I'm pretty sure that there are like professional. I mean, not that it would be a common job; it would be like what we do for a living, but that there are like professional Dungeon Masters that make pretty decent money doing it. And because you got to be in the weeds, you got to have your Dungeon Master screen. Remember that? It's like a thing that came.
Oh yeah.
It's like to protect so no one can see your information, and it has all of these details on it. It's like the inside of a folder in school where it had like the metric system and all that kind of stuff. It has all this information, so people can't see your dice roll and all the secrets that you're keeping. One of the fun things too is using a bestiary to. I still have it. It's on the shelf out there. Actually, it's awesome. The D&D books that have like the monsters in them. Yeah. And then you go through, and as you're making your campaign, you try to find the appropriate monsters. It has all the stats for them. Oh, it's so cool, man. It's good shit.
It's cool.
Yeah. I think people in the Discord a couple of years ago, I remember like 2 or 3 years ago, were trying to put like an online D&D group together. So if they would love to have you as a DM. That would be so funny for them. I guess I don't remember who it was, but I think they wanted to make a thread or a channel is probably still there somewhere.
What I imagine though is that like that somebody will make a choice, but you're not playing it right. Reverting to that childhood thing of like you're not playing it right. You were supposed to hand over the map, Brad, and then this was going to happen, and then this. Like, you're ruining it. Like the reality. I realized this. I had to keep going back to revise it because I realized that I was getting confused with some of the choices. There was at one point I essentially just wrote it that Locke had died. And then I realized, wait a minute, there's a chance for him to still be alive. I had to go back and write a separate line where, okay, now he's still alive, and then like go back and fix it all, because you kind of get wrapped up in the storyline that you want to happen, and then sort of realize along the way, but any of them can happen. It is all just dice rolls. And I realized I had to keep going back and fixing things of, oh, wait a minute, they still have this item from the beginning, or don't they? And I had to keep going back and forth to like correct continuity errors, or even small details. Colin being like, skeletons can't whistle. And it's like, well, I can't whistle either. So I didn't think about it because I've never been able to whistle. I didn't consider this. But no, it was interesting to go through all this, trying to figure out how many health points to give you guys. So because I didn't want everyone to just die. So in reality, I was trying to make sure that somebody lived, but you guys had such a clean playthrough that only one of you lost. No, nobody even lost any health. Everybody like did fine.
Yeah.
So because originally I gave you guys far less health, and then I was like, I don't want them to end up just all three dead by the end. But then you guys just did so well that it didn't even matter. So this was neat. This was neat to do, and also just kind of see what you picture people doing is not at all what they might do. And the interesting facet of if you're a game designer, and like Colin said, in Mass Effect, like they design these characters thinking somebody will play it. And then it's like 1% of people would play it, but you really don't know your audience as well as you think you do sometimes. So this in many different ways was a very interesting exercise.
All right. Cool. Well, that was a good topic.
Yeah, awesome.
I enjoyed it. You might have a future as a DM. You might be a writer. Who knows? All right. Well done. We'll have to revisit this in the future if you'd like. Don't want to put any pressure on you because it is a lot of preparation. Okay.
I mean, if the audience didn't hate it, I would definitely do another one in the future. If I don't get 100 comments saying that was the worst topic ever, then I'd be like, all right, yeah, we can do another one someday.
You won't. There's way more. There's way worse. Most of my topics are way worse than that. Okay, Brad, let's go to you next. Keep the nerd spirit going.
Yes, sir. My topic this episode is Legos. So I love Legos. I grew up building Legos, of course, and in adulthood, I still build them occasionally. But I also want to go beyond just the actual Lego pieces themselves. The whole gamut of Lego, the games, the movies. It's ever. Lego is a humongous property nowadays. And Lego is something I love, but it is so goddamn expensive, and it pisses me off every time. But there's always something in this that gets its hooks in me with Lego. I'm going to share with you guys in the chat one that definitely I was pissed off they made, but also delighted at the same time, which is the Legend of Zelda Lego set with the Deku Tree. Not only is the Deku Tree from Breath of the Wild, but also you can make it the Ocarina of Time version, so you could get to pick which Deku Tree you want. I was like, God damn it, dude. They got me again. I'm back in. I can't escape it. But yeah, I was just kind of curious about what your guys' history with Legos is, what got you into them, if any, favorite sets you got going on. Like when I was younger, and like when you guys were younger also, there was like no licensed sets really. Yeah. It was all kind of just their own. But later on, I think like maybe Star Wars was some of the first ones they started doing.
Yeah, I feel like it is. I'll look this up. Yeah.
And they did Star Wars. Then, of course, you got Harry Potter, and they even have Minecraft Legos. They got like Legos for everything, it feels like. And I think there's like even SpongeBob. There's Mario Legos now. It's just crazy the amount of stuff they have. Locke, I'm going to also share this one with you in chat. You might like this one. The Tower of Beredur in there.
Oh, you pronounce it right. That's Jesus. The price is.
I saw this in person. There's a Lego store near me, Locke. And I saw it in person, and it is humongous.
Hell yeah.
I couldn't believe how big it was. I mean, it's fucking better be big. It's $460 to buy this thing, which is insanely expensive, but it is insanely cool.
Looks
But
amazing.
Locke, let's start with you. Legos, man.
Sure.
Are you into them? History with them?
Well, like I mentioned before, I grew up pretty poor, so we didn't really have like a lot of toys when I was a kid. But I remember when I turned 6 years old, my parents bought me this Lego castle, but they made a big mistake because the night before they put it all together, and then so when I woke up the next morning, they gave it to me and they said, "Here's your Lego castle." Like. Okay, cool. Thank you.
That's so insane.
Then I just stood there in like the corner of my room for like a year until I took it apart and put it back together myself again. Yeah, which was fun, of course. But like you said, when I grew up, and when every one of us grew up, I guess there was no licensed IP.
No.
So I remember having this pirate ship made out of Lego, which was really cool, or like castle, or like futuristic Lego too. But the home I grew up in was a little bit weird because I was really into Lego, but one of my older brothers was really into Meccano. I don't know if you know what that is, but that's like
it's the metal ones.
Yeah, it's basically metal Lego. Lego.
Yeah, I remember those.
You could attach like little motors to them, and they could like you could basically make animatronics out of nothing. So what we did was we would usually combine Legos with like the Meccano, and we would build these huge contraptions that would do absolutely nothing, but would just wobble up and down or shoot up in the air. And I remember we had this little motorized train that we made, and we put this track all the way from my room to my brother's room, and then it would go up. And we were on the second floor, both our rooms. And I remember it went so fast, and my brother, the windows he had, it wasn't like, what's it called? Double glass. It was like
double
flimsy.
pane.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So So like flimsy glass, and that little machine just went right through it, right into our garden. And I remember our parents being so mad at us because they had to basically fix the window, which they didn't do. So during the winter, my brother just had a piece of paper over the hole in his window for like an entire winter, which taught us to never do that again. But other than that, Lego, I guess I'm maybe a little bit too old for it because I remember the video games, of course. I've played them. Like I played the Star Wars Complete Saga in split screen in college when I was high, and it was fun like to play with your friends. But I wasn't a kid anymore back. So I just played it for fun with like my friends in college when you're smoking or when you're drinking, but I wasn't really that into it. I remember playing the Lego Star Wars Complete Saga, Pirates of the Caribbean, Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones I did play by myself because I was a huge Indiana Jones fan. So I bought the original, I don't know what it's called. I think the original trilogy or something, or the original whatever.
With no Nazis in it? No Lego Nazis?
Yes, exactly. Very disappointed. But so I bought that one, and that one was awesome. But then I think Lego Batman 2 came out, and what was fun about those former Lego games was that there was no dialogue, right? They had these weird little voices, and they mimicked like scenes from the movies, which was always funny and humorous. But then when Lego Batman 2 came out, they started using like actual dialogue. And that's when they lost me. I did play Lord of the Rings, which had actual dialogue from the movie, which was awesome to me. I thought that was really great, really funny. So you had like actual voice lines from the movies with these little stupid idiots doing dumb shit, which was really funny. But other than that, I've only played like in the last decade or so. I think I've played the Skywalker Saga a couple of years ago, and that was such a disappointment to me. I know it got great reviews, but I played through like the first movie, I guess the Phantom Menace. Or did it start with the Phantom Menace? Yeah, I think so, because I wanted to play them in order. So I started with the Phantom Menace, and it was just so boring to me.
It was boring, wasn't it? Oh my god.
Yeah. Like I didn't get the purpose of that game at all, but it got such great reviews that I still want to get back to it because I obviously missed something. But yeah, maybe I didn't because you guys don't seem very convinced about it either.
No, I did the same thing where I was going to sit down and play them all. Through, and I did do Phantom Menace and then Attack of the Clones, and I'm like, this kind of sucks. And people were saying, oh, it gets, you should have started with the movies you like. And I'm like, no, I don't want to have to leave these for last. That's like the last thing I want to do. So I was surprised because I was excited about it too. I thought it would like kind of turn me around and get me back into it, but it didn't.
Yeah. So that was basically my last thing of Lego that I played. Of course, I've watched the movie, the normal Lego movie, and the Lego Batman, I think, which were funny, which were fine. But I guess it's like Pokemon for me. I'm just a little too old. Like I just missed like the big renaissance of those toys, which makes me sad because they look so cool. And I think kids these days are such luck that they can buy like all their licensed IP in like Lego form, and they can build shit. Yeah, and it's also I think it's good for the brain. Like it teaches you how to build stuff. It teaches you how to collect stuff, I guess. So it's a really good. I wouldn't call it a toy, but I think it's a really good way to educate kids on architecture.
I'm curious. I like building model kits in general, though. Like I've built so many like Gundam models also in my life with Gunpla and stuff like that. I just love building stuff like that.
Yeah,
and it just like scratches something in your brain that's very satisfying. Just building it is the exciting part about doing all these things. Once you build it, you're like, oh, it's over. Your Lego sets. I couldn't imagine, dude. Your parents just giving you a built Lego set, dude.
Well, they meant well. Of course, they didn't.
Of course, they did, but it's just so
I don't
funny.
think they did it on purpose. Well,
no,
unless they did, but I don't think they did. I don't think they did it on purpose. But now these days, like adults who play with Lego kind of freak me out, like the Disney adults. Like I don't.
Oh, sure, yeah. Some people get crazy with shit.
Yeah, I think that's. Well, everybody should do what they want to do, of course. So just stay away from me if you do that. But it looks cool. Yeah, I wish I had more when I was a kid. I had this cool ship, I had this cool castle, I had these random blocks, but I didn't have like if we had Lord of the Rings Lego when I was a kid. God damn, that would have been huge for me. But we didn't, so I had to imagine it. But it was
We just needed an IP that you really care about to come out in Lego form. The
Suicide
Boys.
Squad.
Oh,
the Boys.
Build
that would be cool.
A Boys set or something with a little Homelander in there or something like that.
It's the Baldur's Gate set and the bear turns into a man.
Oh, yeah.
What's the meme from The Boys that's going around recently of like someone saying something and then it's a picture of that woman with the face like all sucked in, like she got a bunch of surgery. I keep seeing that. You know what I'm talking about? I see that meme going around where it's like, you know, something happened to this character and then it's just a picture of her.
No, it didn't happen to the character. It happened to the actress.
Oh, okay.
She got like her, what's that called? Buccal fat removal?
Yes.
Yeah, where they basically
fat removal.
Yeah. So the actress in the first 2 seasons looked great. She was beautiful, gorgeous. But then I guess, well, I don't know her, but I guess somebody talked her into, or she wanted to do this buccal fat removal thing. And now she looks 50 years old.
That's so fun. That's like the worst. I don't know what women are doing to themselves. It's crazy, man. And the craziest thing about female, in my opinion, female fashion standards is it's all for other women. Like you dress up for other women, you put on your makeup for other women. Like guys don't care about any of this stuff. It's so obviously guys like hot women and stuff like that. But these women are. I very rarely 9 out of 10 times you see someone go under the knife, and then you're like, what did you do? Do you honestly believe that this looks good? I saw a video going around. I don't know if you guys saw this. It was viral. I saw it on Twitter, but I think it comes from TikTok, so people might have seen it there. It's like it must be like a plastic surgery office, and a woman is going around talking to all the people nurses and stuff that work there and be like, how many units of Botox do you have? And each one of them had like the insane amounts of, and I'm like, some of you don't need this. Some of you look like fucking space aliens.
Yeah.
You know, you see like these young, beautiful 20-something-year-old women and they have like low amount of Botox. And it's like, I hope you see in the mirror that you're going to look like this fucking ghastly woman if you keep doing this to yourself, as opposed to just great, as opposed to just aging naturally. Again, Micah and I always bring it up. It's like what Dennis says in Always Sunny in Philadelphia. A woman becomes an old person, a man lives and he dies.
Yeah.
But it's all like women on women pressure.
No, it absolutely is. And it's just like, it is crazy. It is crazy to look at some of these people on the internet and you're like, do people really think this looks good? Everyone having inner tubes for lips these days, and you're dyeing your hair gray and you're getting the cheek fat removed. And it's just like, what the fuck is going on around here? Like, it's weird. It's also like, pick one thing, maybe pick one thing instead of doing all the things, you know, but I don't know. It's out of control. It's way out of control.
it can also destroy your career. Like that actress from The Boys, I don't see her getting any more work after this because she doesn't look like herself anymore. She can barely talk, dude. Like she can barely cry in that show now because there's scenes where she has to be emotional and she just stares into the camera with a blank face because her facial muscles.
I think that's the meme that people are making fun of, where like some guy says like this horrible thing happened to me, and then it's just a shot of her face. You know?
That's oh man, that's so depressing. Fuck.
Sad, yeah. It's really, really sad, yeah. So if you're an actor or an actress and you do that, then you basically ruin your career as well as your face or your body, which is such a shame.
You think about like Mickey Rourke and like Carrot Top just being endlessly lampooned for their plastic surgery. Now, Mickey Rourke continued to get work after that, and he's still a fantastic actor. But it is a little distracting to see him in like the Iron Man 2. I think that's the one he's in. It's just like Mickey Rourke's face doesn't look like it did when I was younger. And Carrot Top, especially, like he has changed his look a bit. So you're kind of used to it now. But when Carrot Top first got that like eyebrow lift or whatever, it was like, Jesus Christ, what happened to him?
Yeah, they're so blown out, dude.
Yeah, he looks fine now because you and I watched an interview with him a few months ago just randomly, and it was so funny. He's funny as fuck. I had no idea he was so funny.
He's hysterical.
Because like I know he's a comedian and all the rest of it, obviously, but he was like busting out something. Again, it's so stupid, but he was telling jokes that he was telling when he was a kid to this comedian, and I was just dying. I was like, oh my. And the one was for the door, like there's a door behind backstage and it says this door should never be opened, and then he's like, so why isn't it just a wall? And I'm like, oh, that's so good. So funny, so stupid. All right. Go
Legos.
On. Yeah.
Micah, history with them, interest in them.
Yeah. So similar to Locke, I really didn't grow up with Legos in the home because it wasn't something we could really afford. I've mentioned before that we did have Connects because I don't know, at some point one of my parents came home with a Connects set. We only had the like one set. And the idea book for it would like, if you have 3 sets, you can make this cool thing, right? It was always stuff like that. Like if you have 5 sets, you can make this. My sister and I played with it a lot. We loved Connects. We also had like the marble run tubes, just those plastic tubes you set up and put marbles through it. We did stuff like that a lot. But Lego specifically as a brand was just kind of out of our price range. I did love it at school, because you'd have indoor recess, for example, on like a rainy day or when it was too cold out. And the teacher would bring out the big bin of Legos and we'd all play with it. My favorite pieces were the window pieces. I loved the windows and like the windshields for vehicles. I don't know why. All the clear pieces I just loved and just loved looking at them. There was something about the window pieces especially. I love miniatures. So I just really, something about those. I wasn't even really building things. I just liked looking at all the pieces, occasionally popping them together just so somebody wouldn't be like, can I have that window? It's like, no, I'm using it. And then just putting it down, so I was like, I'm using it. You can't have it. I love the window pieces. I don't know why. I do, though, the Lego games, really loved those. Played a lot of those on Xbox 360. Locke mentioned Lego Indiana Jones is my only experience with Indiana Jones. I've never seen the movies, but I loved the game. Same with Lego Pirates of the Caribbean. Loved the game. Never seen the movie. I really liked the first 2 Lego Batman games. I did not like the third one. I'm disappointed in the direction the Lego games have gone. I do really love the old ones, but something about the way they did the hub worlds in the new ones, the way the new ones are structured, I just did not enjoy nearly as much as the older ones. But there's so many of them to go back to at this point. I probably haven't played a Lego game in so many years. If I wanted to go back and play any of those, they'd be very fresh to me, especially because I haven't seen the movies. So I don't remember most of what goes on in some of those. Like Lego Batman especially, I remember like my boyfriend at the time and I playing that. And I would always like misbehave. So in Pirates of the Caribbean, you had this barrel that you could stand on and roll around. And I would always like run him over, like when he was in the middle of doing something. And same in Batman, you had this orb you could stand on. I was always like run him over, like right in the middle of doing something. Those games just inspired a real silliness in me. And I just loved like the destructibility. Everything's exploding on screen, the numbers popping up. Like those games are so deeply satisfying. I never got sick of playing them, except Lego Batman 3. I got sick of that one real fast. But yeah, the Lego movie, I really liked the first one. I haven't seen the Batman one, actually. But I loved the Lego movie with Emmett. He was just like the most fun little character. Yeah, Lego is extremely nostalgic for when I did get to play with it as a kid. It was one of those holy grail toys of I only got to play with it at indoor recess. So it was only on those rainy days or those really cold days that we ever got to play with them. And it was just something that I did thoroughly enjoy. These Lego sets now, it's a thing of like, I could technically afford this, but I can't like wrap my head around it. I love the Lego Rivendell set, for example, but it feels fucking crazy to spend $400 on it. And of course, the Barad-dûr, Eye of Sauron towers, like this looks incredible. But like $460?
Yeah, that's expensive.
The honest truth is that I would prefer it if it was a smaller scale model. Because for anyone who's curious, if you Googled, Lord of the Rings, the Barad-dûr set, this thing is ridiculously tall. It's 33 inches high. It's almost 3 feet tall. Where the hell am I supposed to keep this? Like, if they did
your dining
a
table.
12-inch... That's the thing. If they did a model that was half that size, I'd consider it. But the reality is that this is 5,400 pieces, which is insane.
Jesus.
And it's like, you put it together, I'd have to take it apart. I don't have anywhere in my house that I could put this thing. And it was the same with the Rivendell set, which is very wide. And it's like, there's not a single place that I could actually put this in my house and keep it forever. I would put it together and then have to take it apart and put it back in the box. So these extremely large, extremely expensive sets are definitely for a subset of people with either a lot of space, or this is their only decor is Lego sets. But like, because I have a friend who's like, he loves Lego sets and he did like the Sydney Opera House one and whatever. And it's like, these are really cool, but he ends up putting them away because he doesn't have space for them. It's like, you spent weeks building it and then you're just like back in the box. Like, it's not like a puzzle. It's not a jigsaw puzzle where it's like kind of expected she's going to go back in the box. It's like, if I put this whole thing together, I'm going to be buried with it. But it's neat to see. I love seeing these, different IP get the attention. I love seeing the excitement of the fans, like especially these Lord of the Rings sets. But I can't pony up that kind of cash for it, knowing that I can't display it all the time. I have some large collectibles, like you can't see it, but up the very top of my shelf is my limited edition Leshen statue. And it's one of the more expensive pieces in my collection. It's one of the largest pieces in my collection. And the only place I have space for it is at the top of my bookshelf. So I get to look at it all the time. But like really nobody else ever sees it because there's just no room for it otherwise. Yeah. So these collectibles are neat, but I would petition them honestly, like, can you do one that's a third the size so that someone like me can have it out on a desk or something versus having to have an entire coffee table just for this one set? But they are amazing. They are really cool. And somebody pointed out the value actually of the sets one time because they're like, $400 sounds like a lot, but it's something like 2 cents per piece. It's like, oh, something like a penny per piece. And it's like, we put it like that, it doesn't sound so bad. Right. But it is still quite the investment. It's something I do find interesting, just given how expensive things are getting in general, given how, people often lament the cost of things. But when it comes to Lego, a lot of people are just like, oh, this is absolutely fine. This is absolutely fine. The price of these sets, like, they're totally worth it. No bones about it. And Lego is just still going to continue to make them, these really collector sets, It's something I would have expected to kind of die as the economy seemed to get a little weird, but no. They're still just rolling out with them and they're still very popular.
Yeah. Lego seems like a thing that will never die. There's always going to be enthusiasts that are willing to pony up for some of these sets.
Yeah, even course, used.
Yeah. They're expensive. But I think it's cool that Lego... Oh, go ahead.
Well, it's not aimed at kids anymore then, is it, I guess?
They have stuff for kids. They just have definitely people, adults who have money sets also.
Yes.
They still do have a lot of kids sets, which I appreciate. That's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. When I worked at the toy store years ago, there were plenty of small, affordable Lego sets.
There's still that.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, exactly. Little boats and things like that. And you kind of put the sets together, like, okay, I got the shark and the sailboat, and you have the jet ski set. And, there were plenty of different sets to choose from. Also, does Lego own Duplo?
Yeah.
The kind of bigger building blocks. I remember
They do.
seeing those sets as well. And those are the ones made for like even smaller children, where it's like the large blocks that, there's fewer pieces to put together, kind of like baby's first Lego set. And those are still very popular. So there is still the ones made for children that are much more affordable. It is still, though, even the smaller sets, Christmas shopping for my sister's kids, for example, and trying to spend an equal amount on both boys. But the youngest child, his toys are cheaper. Whereas the older who likes Legos, it's like, what I can get for $50 of Lego sets looks very different from what I can get for $50 for the kid who likes Hot Wheels and monster trucks, right?
Yeah.
It's like these Lego sets are very high quality, but in terms of opening presents, one kid's going to open 2 things. The other kid might have 5 things to open because his interests are cheaper. I try to balance that out by having just other things for the older child to open, that are less expensive, so that they're trying to get an equal number of presents per kid. But it is a funny thing of like, these are very high quality toys, and I completely acknowledge that. But they are just like, even the affordable sets are pricier than some of the other options kids can have at that age.
Yeah, they're definitely a more expensive toy. They're high quality, but yes, they are expensive. Kids probably don't care about that when they're super young. They don't give a shit. They enjoy the toys for like 3 days, and they move on to something else. So it's not even worth it most of the time. Because I bought my niece Lego sets before, and they like them for a little bit. They build it, and they just forget about it ever existed. So you don't need to spend that much money on kids, or at least younger kids. Colin, Legos with you, I'm curious about, especially nowadays with Horizon getting a game, actually, a Lego game. They had a Horizon Lego set before.
Tall neck. My nephew has it. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah, so I'll play the Lego Horizon game for sure, because I like Horizon a lot. A really interesting note. This has come up in different capacities, I think, over the years, but right here in our county where we live in Chesterfield County, Virginia. They're building a huge Lego plant here. It'll be the first Lego manufacturer in the United States.
Whoa.
And it'll be 1,700 people here in our county.
Wow.
So it's a pretty big deal what's going on around here right now. And we live in kind of a boom town. It's a little weird. We talk about it all the time as we drive around and go to various places. It's just so much activity and so many people fucking moving here. And so it'll be interesting to see how that transforms things, because those are going to be good paying jobs. I have the website up for it, actually. It's 1,761 people will be hired ultimately by this facility when they're done building it. And they broke ground last year, so I think it'll be done in the next year or so. So shout out to that, because I think that's pretty cool.
That is cool. Get a part-time job there, dude.
Yeah. That would be
Make a Mega Man Lego set there.
The Mega Man will end up with a Mega Bloks set instead.
Yeah.
And they'll make Dr. Wily a black woman.
Yeah, definitely. They definitely will. He can't be a white man. Well, he's a bad guy, so they'll probably want to keep him a white man.
Yeah, we'll make Dr. Light.
They'll make Dr. Light a lesbian woman of color.
Yeah.
So I played with Legos when I was a kid, and there were some like bootleg Legos too. Not only Mega Bloks, but Tyco, I think, made Legos, if I recall. That
sounds familiar. Yeah.
And so I went and looked this up, because I've thought about this, and this has come up probably when we've talked about Lego Star Wars in the past, is Lego, and it's hard for younger people to believe, it's like Lego was just straight up their own thing until 1999. I went and looked it up. That was when they started licensing it. And I remember that era of Lego very well. They were always pretty expensive, but they're not nearly as expensive as they are now. A lot of that has to do with licensing and also them just jacking the prices up to make money. But I remember getting like some pretty cool castles, and I think there was like a spaceship I had. But what was funny was that it would all end up in my Lego bin. I had like a huge... My parents had the Lego bin, super cool. Yeah, they bought me like a many thousand piece just general Lego set that I can play with, and I would build. And then as I would build these castles and all this kind of stuff, ultimately it would just all end up in that bin. Before you knew it, you just had this huge mixture of shit in it. The one thing I remember building with Legos, I was much more into building with blocks when I was a kid. I had some really cool blocks, and my dad also made me a set of like really sick blocks out of wood and all of the rest. And I loved building castles, putting my G.I. Joes in them, and then I would like run things into them and destroy them. And so Legos I wasn't into as much because they weren't destructible in that way where you couldn't like have fun. Like I would literally play these little games with myself where I'd be like, I'd build this huge fortress out of wooden blocks, and then I would have like a G.I. Joe vehicle and they would shoot at it, and I would like basically just throw a little marble or ball and then like whatever damage that did is what it did, and whoever died and fell or whatever is how it went. So it was pretty cool. But the Lego stuff I fell off of, and by the time it roared back and then I had money to buy this stuff, I'm really just of the mind, as I am with some things, it's like, yeah, I can afford all this stuff if I want, but I'm just not paying $200 to $300 for Legos. It's just not happening. Like that's kind of I remember when the Seinfeld Lego set, which was smaller and cheaper, came out, and I'm like, whatever that was, I'm like, I'm not paying for this. This is an insane amount of money to be asking. Like definitely, it is cool to reduce it down and be like a penny a piece. It's like, okay, but somehow they still make massive profit on that, which means that they're just gouging the shit out of everyone. My nephews are really, one of my nephews especially, or our nephews, is really interested in Lego, and that's cool, but I just look at it as a money sink and a time sink. If I were a kid, and I'm really trying to, my youngest nephew here, Dash, he's the youngest of 3 boys. I'm really trying to engineer him to like save his money, because he just lets money burn a hole in his pocket. And he does work for us sometimes. Like he puts the boxes together for our games and all the rest, and then I pay him. And I'm trying to tell him, like, when I was a kid, I basically had little silos where I would save money. And I remember very clearly, like I was trying to save for an AT-AT, like a Star Wars AT-AT. And then like I had like a video game silo and all books and all, and I would kind of distribute the money in between all of them like a nerd. And I couldn't imagine as a kid having the resources, as Dagan would put it, to be able to buy Lego. And I just look at this stuff and I do wonder what is going on. Like, why are these so attractive to people? Because there's no doubt that they're fun to put together. They're cool to store. And I know people have, huge rooms ornated with them, and you can get like really cool, especially the Star Wars stuff back in the day. I remember being really cool, like the A-Wings and the B-Wings and all that kind of stuff. Like, man, TIE fighters and TIE bombers and TIE interceptors. But at some point it's like, damn, dude, this is like $10,000 worth of shit. Like, what are you doing? Like, go buy a real car or something. So I just, from that perspective, I just don't feel like there's much bang for your buck. I did learn through my nephew, though, and this makes a lot of sense, that there are like huge resale websites. That's what makes sense to me, is if you're just interested in building shit and usually just kind of discarding it afterwards because it's like putting a puzzle together or something for you, it is cool that you could just flip this shit or trade it. And so I would probably be more in that line of thinking, but I'm not much of a collectibles person. I've really tried to just choose my lane.
You're not much of a collectibles person,
right?
With all those figures behind you.
Like I said, I try to choose my lane. I'm in the G.I. Joe lane and and like the Mega Man, Castlevania, whatever lane. And yes, I have many, many thousands of dollars worth of this stuff, but I'm not going to just collect things for collector's sake. We talked about it on Sacred Symbols, actually, and I was thinking about it afterwards because there's new Spin Master PlayStation toys coming out, and they look really, really great. There's one for Aloy. They're making Varl for some reason. I have no idea why. And then they're doing Kratos and Atreus and Jin Sakai. And first I was like, oh, I should definitely get that Aloy one because it looks dope. She's like bouncing off, like with a bow and arrow, like bouncing off of a piece of metal and like shooting her arrow. And then I'm like, but I kind of sold all my gaming collectibles or traded them for G.I. Joes when I moved here. I had a shit ton of PlayStation stuff over the years. Like every special edition PlayStation game that you could possibly imagine, I got for free during that era. I had like the mega rare Last of Us one that I got rid of, and the infamous 2 one with the backpack and all the kind of crazy shit you can get. And I'm like, well, so I'm not going to start again. And that's what I was saying. Like, I got to really limit myself, because if it was just based on what you could afford, I could buy all of these Lego sets and put them all together and fucking strew my house with all of them. But it's just really, it's like why I don't want to have all these streaming services. It's not a matter of being able to afford it. It's wanting to afford it. Yeah. And so I just think there's better ways to spend your money. And what's so funny about this is that toys seem to be disintegrating. The toy market is not in great shape. And you can just talk to any young person and see that a lot of kids don't even play with toys as they did back in the day. And so it's funny that the most attractive things on the market are the most expensive. You go and like the G.I. Joe, the 6-inch G.I. Joes behind me that are standing there like armies, those are like 20 or 25 bucks a piece. You know, no normal kid could buy that. The Lego sets, I'm on their website right now. The Deku Tree is $300. The fuck are you thinking? $300? And I know that a lot of that, I understand that. I know their excuse. I don't even have to look it up. Their excuse is like, we have licensing fees now. And that's fine, but come on, man. I'm surprised. I know they don't have to do it. They're not going to do it. They're a fucking huge company. They're European. So take that as you will. But it's like, I just feel like I would be like, let's make this as affordable as possible and like have people have fun with our shit. Instead, it's just, I don't want to be an old man yelling at clouds, but I literally remember going and buying G.I. Joes in the early 90s for $2.99.
Yeah.
You know, Star Wars figures in the mid 90s were $4.99. What the fuck? I watched that the YouTube channel World Class Bullshitters. Specifically, I don't know any of their other stuff, but they do this. I don't know if you guys have ever seen these. These are fucking hysterical. The guy goes into like toy stores and like discount stores and just makes fun of the shit that's on the shelves. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? They're like pretty popular videos that these guys put out. And like they'll go in and be like, oh, all the Star Wars trash is still here. And he'll like, and it like, these are like half an hour videos of him just making fun of the shit that's on the shelves. And I'm like, it's crazy how expensive this stuff is. Little Yoda from The Mandalorian, like a little Yoda that would be a 3 3/4 inch set Yoda, so he would be more like an inch high or whatever. $15. It's like,
that's
what?
A lot, yeah.
What? And that's not that it gets into my whole gaming is cheaper thing. It's like, dude, games are the only things that have really not become more expensive in the world of entertainment. Everything is more expensive except for games. People are crying about paying $60 or $70 for a game when we were paying $90 or $100 for games in the fucking 90s. And meanwhile, you're paying $300 for a great Deku tree? Get a grip.
I don't have a problem with it because I feel like, well, I mean, I wish they were cheaper, of course, but you can spend a lot of money on any hobby you do. There's always something to spend a ton of money. I think a Warhammer. Talk about a fucking expensive ass hobby. That's
just the books.
Just the books alone. When you're talking about building those figures,
my nephew Dash's thing. He has like a whole little desk of those fucking figures. I'm like, where are you even getting all this money from?
I mean, it's like people just spend a lot of money on anything they collect. Like people collect fucking shoes and they spend hundreds of dollars on that shit. And I'm just like, I don't get it. I don't know why you do that, but they seem to enjoy it.
I used to collect those little Warhammer figurines. I was like the Chaos Army, and they didn't cost that much, really, because you would just buy them in bulk at the store. I remember they were like, well, it costs a lot to get started, but you would make like your own landscapes and your own battle maps, basically, and all you had to do was buy the paint and those little figurines. And if you didn't buy the metal ones, because you could buy plastic ones and metal ones, if you bought the plastic ones, you can get like 100 of them for like $50.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at one of these Warhammer sets, like one of the big 40K like walking guys. It's $68 for just this piece, it looks like. So they're fucking expensive because people have whole armies of this shit. Yeah. I'm not talking about just one on the field. They got like 4 or 5 of these.
The 3D printer is your friend. That's what I would say.
Yes, you can 3D print them if you want. Yeah.
I mean, really, and I'm not trying to say like do what you got to do, but and I know that it would, I guess, technically be illegal for people to do that. But if I were like a Warhammer nerd and it's like, okay, I can continue to spend hundreds and thousands of dollars a year on all of this stuff, or I can just buy a 3D printer.
But then it's not real. That doesn't count really. So it's you can't really do that. That's cool to display it, but that's if you're like a collector, of course you're not going to do that. Like,
yeah, or the kids like. I'm sorry. Imagine the other kids clowning on you. Like, imagine Dash showing up to play Warhammer with his friends. He's got homemade figures. Yeah. I would be like, "That's really cool," but kids will be like, "Oh, that sucks!" Like, because to me, I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. You made those. That's awesome." But kids will be like, "Fake Warhammer set." Like, it's just one of those things. Like, so much of this. The parts that are marketed to children, it's like, well, for a lot of kids, appearances is half of it.
Yeah, you're poor.
Having the name brand.
You're so poor.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, why spend the money on anything? Like, why spend money on video games? You can just fucking pirate everything. It's like, sometimes you got to spend money on the real thing.
That's true, but I also feel like the prices are, and again, this goes back into like value over time. There's a commensurate value. Like, gaming has become more valuable. Way more valuable. I know that. Crazy when you think about how valuable it is. That's why I want to just wring people's necks sometimes. Like, what are you fucking saying?
Oh yeah, I get it. But people are not going to look at it like that.
On NES for $60. That game fucking sucks. You know, and that game was $60 in 1990.
When you have people who didn't grow up in that era, Colin, they don't fucking care how it used to be. It's just what it is like now for them. It doesn't matter about the past.
Crazy. They would have been
whatever's convenient for them is what they'll do.
That's true. They would have just never been able to play games back in the day because they would have.
Correct. Or they'd rent them and that's about it.
They would have withered
or borrow them
if they saw the fucking price. And now you're getting The Witcher 3 or something you can basically live in for the same price, not even adjusted for inflation. So
games are credible value.
I do think so. GI Joes, old GI Joes, so like these guys are really valuable, really, really expensive. To have a whole collection of these would be tens and tens of thousands of dollars. These guys don't really hold their value at all, which is why I open them, because GI Joe's is not that popular anymore, and I have no problem displaying them. I think the counter argument you can make to something like Lego and some of these other collectibles is that they probably do hold their value. In fact, if you were able to store this shit away, you might even make money, even having opened them, as long as you have complete sets. And so I get that, but I hate when people do that kind of shit. It was like, it's a very weird mentality. I started to kind of imbibe this mentality as a Star Wars collector later in my Star Wars collecting. So I collected Star Wars figures from when Power of the Force 2 started in 1995 all the way through Episode 1. So that would be 1999 and even into 2000 because they were still releasing Power of the Force stuff. And I would open it all and display it. I rarely played with them. I was kind of too old at that point, but and there's pictures of it online. Like my dad had this amazing shelf that came from a record store with like little like inserts and I had all my figures in all of them and it was fucking dope. But eventually I was like, I'm going to stop opening these and just keep them because they'll be more valuable in the future. And that's when I stopped collecting because it was not fun anymore. And then you realize those things are worthless now. Like you really the Star Wars figures I have are worth less than what I paid for them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, Star Wars is not a hot IP as much as it used to be. And there's an oversaturation of it.
Right. I remember, I'll never forget at Comic-Con, I've told people this, like at New York Comic-Con 10 or 15 years ago at this point, I was like, oh, like I have some Power of the Force stuff. Is it worth any money? And the dude's like, I can get you an 18-wheeler full of Star Wars figures like right now. They overproduce. And in hindsight, it's like, yeah, of course they did. I remember going to Toys R Us at midnight in early May 1999 to get fucking Episode 1 figures. There were fucking hundreds of us there. It was probably replicated all over the world. Everyone kept them in packages. So everyone just has them. It's just that. And George Lucas was just a genius with the marketing and keeping that, being like, I don't care about the movies. I want the licensing. And that was like his brilliant stroke of genius, obviously. I guess what I'm saying is I just wish things were cheaper and more affordable for kids because Lego's mega high quality and really cool. And they have access to a bunch of licenses. I actually have a chart up here. This is from Brickpedia. It's like a fandom site. And it's like Star Wars is 1999. And then they start doing Disney stuff in 2000, Harry Potter in 2001, Spider-Man in 2002. And then you get like all the Marvel stuff pre-Disney and so on and so forth. Avatar, SpongeBob, Batman, Thomas and Friends, everything. and it just opens up. Indiana Jones is 2010 or no, 2008. I'm sorry. And it's the game Lego Indiana Jones, The Original Adventures. That's the game you were thinking of. And that's from 2008. And so they just realized, I think, that, wow, we have this really high quality toy and then we can just not really do our own thing anymore. Even NASA and all this kind of stuff, which is super cool too. So I don't begrudge anyone the really neat opportunity if you have the money, but it does seem like a rich person's or a wealthy kid's hobby and like more of a status symbol than a toy. And I lament that we don't seem to have the days anymore where things can be more affordable, where a mom can pop in. I remember it's like, oh, my mom would bring me to the grocery store if I was good or whatever. I wasn't busting balls. Then she'd be like, oh, let's go get a G.I. Joe. And it was like not putting anyone out. And that was like a high quality, popular toy. And I just can't imagine things like that existing anymore.
There's still toys like that. I mean, Hot Wheels are still exist and they're still reasonably priced. Like there's still a lot of cheap toys you can get for kids, but Legos, I would argue, were never like cheap toys ever.
I don't remember what they cost back in the day. That's the thing is like, I don't think I ever really bought my own Lego set ever. And so, and I think that's where the whole brick mentality came from. One thing you'll appreciate, by the way, Brad, is one thing I remember building. So this was, again, I had like a boat, a castle, like whatever, and it all gets combined. So I have like propellers and all these cool things. I used to, when Dagan would play Mario 3 when we got it, I would build airships and like these really rudimentary, cool, like little airships. So I was fascinated with those. And that's why, because we had the propeller, we had like the kind of the turrets from the castles and all the kind of things. So there is something cool about mixing it all up. But today that drives like the OCD adult Colin like crazy. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. But yeah. So anyway, I've gone on and on, but I just can't believe how expensive it is. It's just crazy. That bothers me just because I feel like hey man, everything's for profit. That's totally cool. Make your money. People are obviously buying it, but I think you could spread the field and make even more money.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
They could make it cheaper, and I wish they would. But there's still some cheaper sets. Like there's one for $15 I'm looking at here for kids, $20, $30. There's cheaper stuff, but not the super awesome stuff. That's for adults with money. Yeah, that's it. I'm satisfied talking about Legos.
Excellent.
Love them. They're expensive as fuck though, but I still like them.
I want this Lego Christmas tree that I'm seeing. Like, I haven't been on the Lego site in a while, and there's so many cool things. I'm like, this is why I don't look here. Because, like, this Lego Christmas tree is awesome. That is something I'd put out. Like, that would be a fun, every Christmas you build this, put it out on the coffee table. Like, that would be fun.
Yeah, that's
I'm thinking about this now.
Yeah, it's not very big, too. So, yeah, it's Micah
I
size.
love my, I have these ceramic Christmas trees that I put out every year, and one of them broke last year. Then like the batteries got all corroded, and she needs to go. She needs to be retired. I'm sad because I've had it for many years. But it's like I have this little collection of these little ceramic trees that I like putting out, and it's like, well, this could be an idea, and it's not full of batteries, and that will leak all over my coffee table. So
yeah.
Mayhaps I'll get this Lego Christmas tree.
Mayhaps. Cool.
I'll take it from here to break up the nerdiness a little bit, and then we'll end with something nerdy again. Although I guess this could be nerdy from its own perspective. I wanted to talk about a Schadenfreude, one of my very favorite things. Comes up on Sacred Symbols every once in a while, and how much I overtly embrace Schadenfreude because I know people do it to me.
Mm-hmm.
People that don't know, Schadenfreude is a German term, and it basically means that, like, if you're experiencing Schadenfreude, it means that you're enjoying someone else's misfortune. And usually it's done secretly, but sometimes overtly. And I kind of wanted, and this was kind of for you, Brad, when I found out you were on the show. So as I say, sometimes I have a short list of topics here that I just kind of once in a while. And one of them is Schadenfreude. And I wanted to do this for you specifically because, and something came up too that I think makes it make sense, but for you to be on the show when we do it, because I know that on Summon Sign you have, especially for the sorted out segment, you want to hear that shit.
Yeah, you can talk shit.
A lot of people aren't talking that shit. And so this is everyone's opportunity to do so, because what I'd like to go around the horn ultimately is to learn about where you'll honestly tell me where you've participated in a little Schadenfreude and someone else's misfortune on and where your mind is on that, or maybe you just really don't, but I doubt it. I think everyone's there. But the reason I wanted to bring this up was because I put it in our email for the topic this week, where I was noting that the whole thing that happened with the streamer Dr. Disrespect, it made me realize, like, the Schadenfreude energy for that was a 10 out of 10, as far as I can tell from other people. I wasn't really in it because I'll be honest with you, I know what the guy looks like, but I don't know anything about him. I really don't know what his content is. I know he owns a game studio or something, or did. I guess he was kicked out of that. And he's been accused, I guess, of some impropriety with an underage girl on Twitch.
Yes.
And he claims that nothing really happened. And I don't really know one way or the other. Like, who the hell knows? It seems a little more complicated than people are making it out to be, considering Twitch apparently paid him out and he had like some sort of arbitration behind the scenes or whatever. But I really don't know the details. And frankly, I don't care, because the point is that I was witnessing kind of secondhand Schadenfreude of people really enjoying this. Like, and it's so funny how people have their knives out and are in some way fake around some people, or just want to see powerful or wealthy or whatever people, famous people, fall on their faces. And really, it's not just fall on your faces and embarrass yourself. Like, Schadenfreude is about like the downfall of someone, or like it could be misfortune, but it's deeper and darker than that. It's like a balancing game. And like a person's enjoying when things have become severely unbalanced for someone, as opposed to like the status quo. As I've said in the past on Sacred and in other contexts, is like, I wasn't very much of a Schadenfreude person until I was the victim of a Schadenfreude cycle. And I think what's good for the goose is good for the gander in some way. So my Schadenfreude is like a turnabout is fair play sort of situation, if you're British and you want to say it like that, which is there were many, many, many people that openly and actively rooted for me to lose my career and my job after what happened at Kind of Funny and to be run out of the industry. And of course, that didn't happen. They just frankly made me a wealthier person and a more stable person. And more powerful than they could ever imagine.
Yes.
But in reality, I have like a small niche here on the internet. We make a lot of money doing what we do, and it totally ate shit, and it's awesome, right? But that's not good enough for me. The one thing I tell people all the time is, because I consider myself a pretty kind and decent person, I don't really, especially in real life, go at people or mess around in any way. I try to be empathetic and all of the rest. And the Schadenfreude that was positioned against me and how much people were enjoying what was happening to me made me realize that, like, you don't always have to turn the other cheek. And I kid around about forgetting things and having a fucking short-term memory because of my weed smoking and all the rest. But the reality is I have the memory of an elephant. And I remember what everyone said to me. And I took it really personally. And not that I mentally tick it down one by one, but sometimes I do, as this person washes out, this person meets misfortune, this person loses their money, this person gets fired, this person has some sort of trauma or accusation against them. And every time I'm smiling like a Cheshire cat as the list is whittled down more and more of me surviving and outdoing all of the people that were rooting against me. And I have to be honest with you, it's like, it's a weakness because I know that that's not normal or good, but it's something I've held on to. And it's actually something that's motivated me. Mm-hmm. I totally get the idea of like, you want the losers to lose. It's like, yeah, like I am deeply motivated by making sure I outlast you, out earn you, out fame you, outwork you. And a lot of these people probably, because they're so in on just the cause of the day of who's the main character on Twitter, who's whatever, that they probably even forget or don't even remember, but the targets of that abuse do. And so that's where my Schadenfreude-esque energy totally emanates from, is just that entire circle. And it's not a very big group anymore. There's really only a few people left in my mind that I'm like, yeah, I need to wait for you to go away. And that's why I say, like, when Kotaku will go out of business.
Yeah.
Or at least it will be sold off to some equity firm where it becomes like an SEO farm, right? And it really already is. I will be front and center, openly and overtly celebrating the firing of every single person on that staff and the downfall of the brand after the way they wrote about me and my friends and treated our causes and disingenuously did a lot of things. Famously wrote a story about us, never even asked us for comment and all the rest. The Schadenfreude is going to be so thick you'll be able to cut it with a knife that day. I fucking guarantee you. I will be gloating over the grave, R.I.P. Bozo, Pack Watch smoking the cigar, the black guy on the video. Like, it's going to be like, I'm not above it. I'm totally not above it.
It's going to be like Jerry with the cigar in Seinfeld.
Right,
or something like
right.
that. It's going to be you laughing at your desk.
Yeah, it's counting the money.
Yeah.
During the bet, I think.
Yeah.
That particular shot. I'm thinking too of him like sitting and being like, that's a shame, as he's eating
that's
like a bowl.
Yeah,
a bowl
exactly.
And people drew that out of me. It's almost like a supervillain story in some sense. And I get it, but I'm focused on it in some way. Like, I know that that's like a thing. And I wonder if anyone else shares this. And that's why I wanted to go around the horn today and see if anyone else is willing to admit where because I think we all participate in a certain Schadenfreude, political Schadenfreude, like watching the candidates you hate lose. Like when Hillary Clinton lost in 2016, dude, I was so amped. Like, it was so fucking funny to me because I knew how much that destroyed her forever. She was broken from that moment all the way to now, and I took great pleasure in that. But so did many millions of people. Like, I wasn't the only one. Or when a sports team you hate loses. Or a great example for me is a huge Islanders fan, obviously, when John Tavares left and opted to go to the Maple Leafs. And he's been there, I think, 6 years now and has found no success, like just absolute horrible, like, playoff performance and all the rest. I'm rooting against that dude with every ounce of my being. Like, whatever kind of fiber I can put into the ether, whatever kind of energy I can send towards his demise as a hockey player, like, you can have it all. And I'm in it. I mean, that's just the way it is, but it doesn't really spread into my real life very much. And even when people I don't like have bad times, I'm still a little empathetic. Like, a good example is when Joe Biden just crashed and burned, as we dedicated 4 hours to it last week on Constellation. It's like, I actually felt bad for him. Like my honest answer is internally, I'm like, this is really sad. You know, other people were, you can feel the Schadenfreude energy though.
Yeah.
But even I was like, I don't, this is like elder abuse. The man's like senile or something, you know? So it doesn't seep into all things, but Brad, this is for you because I know you want to hear that shit talk.
Yeah.
And you say it like we don't name enough names. And, so yeah, Kotaku is like one of those things. I would say Polygon, but Polygon's like so irrelevant at this point that they kind of spun themselves into complete disaster. There's like, the reality is there's just not that many left. But in 2017, 2018, it was like, you know, a guy in a fucking fantasy novel reading some sort of document and just spreading it all over the ground. He unrolls it and it just fucking rolls for 5 seconds onto the ground. That's how long it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I'm at. Brad, where are you on this? How do you feel about this stuff?
I share the same thing of Kotaku and Polygon. I cannot wait for those websites to fucking crash and burn. I strongly dislike those websites for all their bullshit articles, their whiny crybaby shit, of course attacking you and stuff, and my friends also. I can't wait for you guys to go out of business, dude. Go fuck yourselves, both of you. And any of those, like, you know, gaming sites or whatever that are all clickbaity, trying to cause trouble, trying to make issues out of shit, out of everything, always trying to poke the bear at anything, dude. It's so exhausting and all that stuff. Colin, I experienced a 1% or maybe 0.5% of what you went through when you left Kind of Funny, when I left Easy Allies. Like very extremely minimal, but like all those people on Reset Era and all those dumbass crybabies, dude, it's like, go fuck yourself also. It's like all those people. I don't give a shit about you guys. And I'm not a very I don't have a lot of malice in me, or I'm a very vindictive kind of person. But it's just like, yeah, I just don't like you guys. Just get what you fucking deserve.
Right. Like, I'm a walk softly and carry a big stick person. Like, I don't want to fuck with anyone, but I do believe in like overt retaliation. Like, if you're going to come at me, I want it to be 10 times worse for you. You know, like literally, like there's like nothing. I'm not ashamed of it at all because I'm not starting the beef. I'm not starting the shit. I'm not talking the shit. And I'm willing to back it up if I am. But this idea that like people would just root, like, and that's where the Dr. Disrespect thing came in, where it was like, it just seemed like people were laying in wait. That part felt very familiar to me.
Oh yeah.
You know, where it's like, they're just waiting. Like, they don't really have any affection for you. They don't really like you. They're using you. Or they're afraid of saying much more, or whatever. And obviously, like, what he's accused of is, I wasn't accused of anything, but I made a joke about women. But the point is that like it felt almost so automatic, like machine-like and mechanical. Yeah. Like they were waiting. They got the input they needed, and then they pounced, and I couldn't ignore that. Locke, where are you on this?
Well, the thing I look for, or the thing that I appreciate the most about my friends, is loyalty. Whether they're offline or online, it doesn't matter to me. Loyalty is the most important thing to me. That's also one of my own personal good traits I have, I think, is I'm very loyal to the people who I consider my friends. So what happened over the past few weeks, and what happened to you, Colin, and what happened to you, Brad, is stuff that really bothers me. It's people who are supposed to be your friends not having your back. I think that's the worst thing imaginable. I couldn't imagine my friends, both offline or online, doing or saying the stuff that's been said about you two. I wouldn't be able to handle that, I think, because it's not normal. It's not a normal position you should be in. And what happened to Dr. Disrespect, regardless of what he did, all these streamers and all these online people, they only have one thought, and that's how do I make this about me, and how do I monetize this, and how do I make a good video about this, even though I don't know the guy, or worse, how do I make a good video about this, even though I considered him a friend up until a week ago. It's okay to condemn what he did, of course, because what he did is not good or normal. Right. But you could just shut up and not say anything about it. Or you could just reach out to him in private and tell him, what the fuck happened? What did you do? You don't have to make a video about it. You don't have to monetize it. You don't have to clobber all together and demonize this person. Or again, what happened to you guys? Basically the same thing, even though both of you didn't do anything. But on a more personal level, I I've already told the story about my dad a couple of times, so I'm not going to get into that again. But when my dad had his accident, he had a shit ton of friends. My dad had a big job, very important job, very important friends everywhere, all over the world. And as soon as he had his accident, all of them disappeared. Like none of them came to visit him. None of them called anymore. They were just gone. And then at his funeral 2 years ago, there were a bunch of people, of course, a bunch of friends of his who came up to me and told me like, we're so sorry that we never came to visit. It was very hard on us. And I told them, like, I don't give a shit. Like, it's not, you're not visiting him for you. You're visiting him for him. Like you bunch of selfish pricks. And the same goes for a couple of my family members who basically did the same thing. And then afterwards, they want to come, they want to be the nice guys and they want to be, oh, we're so sorry. We just didn't feel right. I don't care. A bunch of those people, I know one of them was put in the similar situation I was in. His mother got into an accident, had brain damage, basically the same story. And he called me a couple of months ago and he told me like, oh, I'm so sorry. I finally understand what you were going through. And I just told him like, yeah, I don't care. I think once you break loyalty or once you break a level of trust with me personally, you're done. You don't exist anymore to me. And I think in your situation or what happened to you guys, if you have like all these bunch of online people who you don't know and who don't matter really, and who are all piling onto you, that is something that's not psychologically normal. That is something that will cause you maybe mental illness. I can imagine. I don't know I guess you call it deal with anxiety. I don't know if you have anxiety, Brad, but I can imagine that takes a toll on your mental health, something like that. So when I see people online doing the same thing now over that doctor disrespect thing or over anything else that happens in the future or in the past, last year we had that Nick Mers guy who said something about trans people, and then Dustin spoke up about it, and then people rained in on Dustin too. Or when Dustin came on Frame Trap, and people were like, Dustin is like the nicest person imaginable. So it's. I wish people would just shut up. That's the main thing I'm trying to say. Like, you don't have to make a video about other people. That's like all these drama channels or all these drama people or like monetize. Yeah, I want to be the main character. No, fuck off. Like just disappear. Like, sadly, it gets clicks and people love watching that content, but I just think it's despicable. So yeah, loyalty is one of the most important traits. I'm very glad that I get to work with you guys because you guys are very loyal and you guys are decent people from what I've seen. Anyway, so far. So
I'm a
so far.
So from your standpoint, Colin, because Schadenfreude is something I learned not to have really over the years. Because like you said, everybody has their own personal Schadenfreude moments, and I really try in myself not to have that. But from your perspective, I completely understand it. Because if I were in your shoes, I would actively work towards burning those outlets to the ground myself.
Well, people are always like, "Oh, Colin's burned his bridges and stuff," and I'm like, "What would you have done?"
Yeah, exactly.
Like, why would I want to have kept those bridges intact?
Yeah.
I don't want
they want you to grovel.
Yeah, like, well, that was the whole thing. I could have groveled and kept the status quo. I would have left ultimately for some other reason. I wanted out, but it was very telling, and it's one of those things where I admit I'm not above it. It's not something I go and seek out, but it's like, yeah, you wanted this fight. I remember you at my absolute worst. Yeah. You gave me no quarter and reveled in it. And I remember, and I am not above wanting the worst shit to happen to you now because of it. I don't want you to die. I don't want get cancer or anything like that. No. I want you to wash out and be irrelevant. And you can go live in your fucking shoebox in New York City or your shoebox in San Francisco. And fuck off. Like, I want you to look back, the royal you. I want these people to look back and be like, that was stupid. And wow, that person's in a much better position than I am. That gives me great delight. And it does feed into the whole like living well is the best revenge. And it really is. If I didn't go through that fire in some sense, and wasn't forged by it, I don't think I would have even had the drive. I knew I had to act. Like I knew I had to do something and save face in some way. And that was an important part of it, is having a gallery of people that are jeering you, basically, and wanting to overcome that. And for you, Brad, it's so interesting because I'm so glad that what happened with you and the little microcosm of that happened in the era that it did, like where the tide had turned on this shit by the time you were coming out of Easy Allies and coming to us.
Right. Yeah.
And it's funny that, like, I remember reading all of the stuff and just being like, wow, this is so positive. For me, it was probably half and half.
I was going to say, I got a lot of support still, a lot.
Like an enormous amount. I mean, it was awesome to see. And I was like, yeah, times have changed. And I talk about getting credit a lot in different ways, and that I'm never going to get the credit for being like a big part of what made IGN tick. I'm never going to get a credit for founding Kind of Funny. I'm never going to get credit for the stories that I break. It's like I'm in this sort of situation, and so the only thing I can do is kind of look back and be like, yeah, I guess I was one of the examples that fought back and was like, I'm not going down like this. And of course, I had major help from people like Joe Rogan and Glenn Beck and like all these people and people that I will never talk about behind the scenes that are pretty famous too, that reached out and gave me heart, you know? But what's so fascinating to me is that about Easy Allies specifically, is the same forces that broke the original Kind of Funny up are the same forces that destroyed Easy Allies. And it's a matter of if you let it happen or not. Like, I wonder if those people realize, and they probably don't care, like the Reset Era people, like they destroyed that company. Like, and really,
that's why I left.
So well, no offense to the people that you work with or worked with too, of whom I know some of you have great affection for some of them, and that's awesome. But it's also on them for listening, and that was to Locke's point, because some people are like, "Wow, Colin, you went really hard on Easy Allies when they went after Dustin." It's like, you damn right, dude. It's exactly what I said. Like, you come after one of my people, and I'm going to smack the shit out of you, and it was way worse, the original version, than what Dustin put out. So, because I felt in the moment, I'm like, I felt it in my spirit, my heart. I'm like, no, what's happening to Dustin is what happened to me. Like, in just a small way. It's like, nope, no one stood up and said, this isn't going to happen to Colin. You know, people that could have stopped it didn't. And I wasn't going to let that happen. And in fact, I wanted to give a lifeline to someone that I felt like needed to get out, you. So we can have like a kind of, we can commiserate in some way that this all happened to us in some different ways, but at the same time, loyalty has been overtly displayed, and I am loyal. It's the same thing with Locke. Like but at the same time, I reflect on my own social experiences, and people make fun of me, which is fine. You can make fun of me for whatever you want. I don't mind, but it's like, you know, Colin never leaves his house and he never goes anywhere. It's like, do you understand that like my whole social life was destroyed?
Right.
Like, I think some people don't. It's like outside of Ramon and Mike Pope, or like people I've known forever, like I lost everyone. I had nothing. When I say I have no friends outside of the internet, like the people I work with, I mean it. Like, and is that part of that a choice? Yeah. But do you think I'm ever going to trust anyone ever again like that? Like that, the way I trusted those people? I think people don't think about what it does to you. And so like working through it is one thing and getting over it is one thing. And I wasn't over it for a long time. And I do think I'm over it now. I think when I started to make really good money and like started to really solidify myself and all that, I really did get over it. But I won't get over the revenge aspect. And it's not active revenge. I'm not like plotting away. I'm not the Punisher, you know, trying to like be like, I'm going to go after everyone that fucked me over and fucking killed my family and all that kind of stuff. No, it's just like, I'm patiently waiting to just enjoy my own celebratory thing. And it's you're 9 out of 10 times, you're never going to know that I'm enjoying it, but I am. And so I'm glad that was brought up, because I think that was a good connection to it, is what happened with Brad and Easy Allies and people's reactions, but how different the environment is. Micah, do you ever participate in Schadenfreude?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, in a very different way, I relate to Colin a lot about losing all your friends and stuff, because when I, left the Jehovah's Witnesses and everyone I ever knew shunned me, family included. And it's like you lose everything, every friend you've ever had, everybody just acts like you're dead. I don't actively wish for bad things on these people, but when something bad happens to them, it is the Jerry Seinfeld, oh, that's a shame. You know, it is that response of like, oh, well, this person who did not give a shit about you, oh no, their house caved in, that's too bad. It's like I'm not actively rooting against people that I know personally, let's say, but I don't feel any sympathy for a large swath of people that I used to know. And it's like, oh no, this happened to them. That's too bad. It's just that level of like, I don't put energy into it because there's a degree of disliking people that takes energy, and I don't put any energy into it. That's for sure. But when I find out, that, oh, so and so had this happen, it's like, oh no, how awful for them, And it's like secretly, it's like, oh, that's fantastic. In reality, Colin, it was after you sent this topic out, because I'm on a Stephen King kick, reading through his catalog and just reading about him. And after you sent out the email, I saw this article that had this quote from Stephen King where he said, "I have outlived most of my critics. It gives me great pleasure." And it is just like one of those perfect things of like, yeah, you don't have to be actively seeking revenge like the Count of Monte Cristo, okay? But you can still, derive some sort of joy from outliving people who maligned you, or and not even just literally, but also just figuratively in terms of work, etc. People who told Stephen King that his work wasn't any good, things like that, or people who, instead of helping him through his various addictions, just kind of piled on. It's like, yeah, the guy takes great delight in seeing that it's like not only is his career continued on, he just released another book this year. The man's just never going to stop writing fucking books, but he's also just persevered through all that and literally outlived a lot of these people. And a couple more that I have, though. This one's going to sound a little fucked up. Do you guys remember the show Glee?
Yes. Yeah, sure.
I hated Glee so much. I couldn't stand it. And you know what happened to Glee? You know what happens to Glee? Well, part by part, they started dying. First, there was, I can't remember the timeline. One of the guys ended up being a pedophile.
Oh my God.
That was a delight. Okay, here, I gotta word this carefully. Not for the children. I think all he had, though, was, I'm gonna word this carefully so we don't get demonetized. He had the child abuse materials on his computer. I don't believe he actually abused anyone himself, but that guy killed himself when he got caught. Goodbye, Glee. People were very upset because they're like, I can't rewatch the show now. It's ruined. Oh, no. It's not Glee. And then Corey Monteith died. And then I think Naya Rivera died. And I just remember thinking, like, you people brought me so much misery. And I'm not the least bit upset about watching the Glee cast slowly die. So Glee was one. And Colin, you mentioned Kevin Samuels earlier, who's
R.I.P.
dead.
King.
Kevin Samuels was a very, controversial figure. I rarely agreed with anything he said, but I loved watching him dunk on these women that would call in, because they were, the whole premise, a lot of the premise of Kevin Samuels was, women trying to educate women so that they could find high quality men, as he said it, men who make more money, blah, blah, blah. The problem that Kevin Samuels always ran into was he'd have these women calling in who have, like, they're a single mom to 3 kids and they want to find a guy who makes $1 million a year because they think they're worth it. And he would just dunk on them.
What's your dress size?
To the degree of, like, you think a guy who makes $1 million is going to try and take in your ready-made family? Like, you think that dude wants this situation, and like he would just put them in their place, essentially. And I gotta say, like, I disagreed with a lot of things he said, of course, because the guy was, like, fucked in other ways. But it was hysterical watching him dunk on these broads all day. And sometimes men would call in and he'd dunk on them too.
That's
like,
I found
it was
him was because he was dunking on some dude and it went viral. Do you guys know who Kevin Samuel was? He's dead now.
No.
He's like this black guy from Georgia, I think, and he did a really popular YouTube. He had a really popular YouTube channel where he would do like call-ins, basically, and like Micah's saying, where people would call in about relationships and all the rest. But it was so funny. Like, I don't know how, I like I said, I discovered actually him through a viral video, like I said, of him dunking on this dude, but it's mostly him dunking on women. And he would always be like, like before you didn't even start talking about, how tall are you? What's your dress size? That kind of stuff. Like just, and he was so funny. And I fell in love with him. And I was so sad because I was like, oh my God, this is so endlessly entertaining. He's always live on YouTube. He has like tens of thousands of people watching. He would do something. Remember, Micah, if he wasn't getting enough tips, because it's like a very black show. I was probably one of the only white people watching it. And he would do this thing where if he wasn't getting enough tips, he'd play like this country rock music. And he wouldn't talk until people gave him more money.
Oh my God.
Like to torture the audience or whatever. He'd be like, wait a minute. Then like hit a button or whatever. And then like it would just play this like country rock or whatever. And like people would get so upset that they would give him more money. So he'd go back and do it. He was so funny. And then he died. And I was like probably only a year or so after I found him. I'm like, God damn it. Like I envisioned decades of this guy. Just so funny. And that's, to me, not so much Schadenfreude. It's just funny. Like, because women are walking. It's like women. It's like a log walking into a wood chipper. It's like, why are you even calling? You know, like you think you're going to be the one that doesn't get fucking destroyed in front of 50,000 people or whatever. It's very funny shit. You know,
it'd be the woman with the smoke alarm beeping in the background, and he'd always be like, "You're gonna die alone with a dog," and then he'd play this like bark, soundboard noise.
Yeah. And he'd be like, "Buy a pet, like, die alone."
yeah, exactly. He's like, or he had this sound bite. There was this one woman who called in and was basically she had said like, "I'm a PhD," because she was like, "I don't need a man to be happy," and like he used her voice from that point forward on his soundboard. It always be like, "I'm a PhD." He's like,
would be like, I'm
alone.
Educated would be like, "I'm a PhD. I'm a PhD. I'm a PhD." Yeah. Oh my God, you gotta go find him. Like, dude, they're a legendary Kevin Samuels.
Oh my God, awesome. Yeah. Some of them were just so good, but like, there was
like knee slapping funny shit. Yeah.
Yeah, he was just so mean. Like he was just so viciously mean to these people, and it brought me great joy. Like, and it was because I'll say, like, as an example, he would say things like, "Oh, if your husband's rich, it's okay for him to cheat on you. It doesn't count." And that's the type of stuff. And I'm like, whoa, like that's completely false. So it's like, I mean it wholeheartedly. I don't agree with hardly anything he said, but the man was fucking hilarious. And like when he was going into it with these women, part of it is like you disagree with him, but these women were so poorly spoken that it's like, can you send somebody who can actually like, you know, debate with the man? But there was nobody. Like everyone who ever called in, he would just rip them apart. And it's like, I don't even agree with what he's saying, but he's just like, they can't compete. They weren't prepared. None of these women had notes. None of these women were ready. Or he'd always default to, even if they had a good argument going, then he'd be like, "How tall are you? What's your dress size?" Like he'd always default to that. They'd start crying. It was a time. It was an era. I'm with Colin in that, like, man, I can't believe he's gone, because when we discovered him and we watched some of his old videos and then we would watch him live, and we probably have videos we never watched. We probably could at some point go and look at old videos on his channel.
I don't know if I have the spirit to do it. I can't, like, he's a fallen king, you know?
It was just, he'd light a candle. He'd say the candle of the evening and what scent it was. He'd say the cologne of the evening. He would drink Red Bull out of like a bourbon glass. The man was just classy.
He was really classy. Yeah.
He was hysterical.
Yeah, he'd wear like a really nice suit. That's what's so funny about it. He had like a sifter in his hand. He'd be wearing like a really nice suit, beautiful background, like really ostentatious, and they're just fucking dunking on these people, you know?
Yeah, because his his day job, he called himself an image consultant. So people would hire him to like, I'm trying to further my career. I need to improve my wardrobe, or I'm trying to get married and I feel like I dress like crap. Like, help me dress better. That was his actual day job. Aside from the YouTube thing, was he was an image consultant and would help people try and class up their act a bit, you know, whether it's to attract a spouse or whether it's to like do better in their career. Like, you know, but so the vibe of it was just so funny, because here he is dressed like he's on Downton Abbey, and then these women calling in and the smoke detectors beeping, and they're like face way too close to the camera, you know, things like that. Like he would tell people, like, if they couldn't figure out their Zoom settings, he would just like drop the call from them immediately, even if they paid to be on, type deal. He was just, it was so funny. Just watch him be mean
also,
to
I forgot
people.
he also had another sound on his soundboard when like a heavy woman was on. He would play this. He would just hit a button. And
Big
be
Shirley.
Dun, dun. Yeah, he would call them Big Shirley and be like, dun, 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 dun,
Oh
dun,
my
dun, dun,
goodness.
dun. Oh god, it was dude. You gotta look into Kevin Samuel. Like I'm telling you, legendary entertainer.
And these women called in on their own accord.
voluntary.
This is the number. Here's the biggest part of why I felt it was exceptionally funny. These women were calling in for his advice. These women knew the act. These women knew what they were getting themselves into. And because one of his things, for example, was he had to be like, rate yourself 1 to 10. You can't say 7 because so many people default to 7 as being like better than average, but I'm not saying I'm a superstar. And he would always say that Beyonce was a 7, for example. So if somebody would be like, I'm an 8, and he'd be like, you think you're prettier than Beyonce? You know, like, but these women were calling in on their own, accord. They wanted the advice. They were seeking it out, which is part of what made it okay to laugh. I mean, generally speaking, I think it's always okay to laugh. But on that higher level of like, look, these people are calling in, paying to be on the show because they'd give them the $5 super chat to try and get a better chance of being on. And then they would just get bullied mercilessly. And like, it really was just a gold mine of content. I do miss watching it.
Let me ask you something really quick about all of this kind of thing. Especially curious about what you guys think, because I'm pretty easy to forgive if someone's very earnest about their apology. If some of the people like wronged you in your life apologize to you earnestly, would you accept it?
Oh, what? Oh, yeah. If you don't mind if I answer first, like,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because like, so as an example, when I left the Jehovah's Witness church, my sister and I went very distant. She wasn't supposed to talk to me. She didn't completely cut me off like my mom did. She would talk to me periodically, check in how I was doing. But she really, I wasn't allowed to go to her wedding reception, for example, and things like that. And we just would talk a couple times a year. She'd just kind of check to see if I was alive, right? And when she also left the church, she felt really bad because when she went through it herself and realized what it was like to have everybody just stop talking to you and pretend you're dead. And I had told Colin this of like, I could have just said, no, you did this to me and it was wrong. I don't want to talk to you anymore. But I didn't. I was like, no, I want my sister back. So we made up. I had her in my wedding. Like I wasn't able to be in hers at the time, but I could have said, no, you didn't put me in your wedding. I'm not going to have you in mine. And I didn't. I was like, no. You're going to be in my wedding. We're going to do it the right way this time. And we're going to be friends again. And it's been fantastic. I have my sister back. This is, over the last few years. But it's like, it really depends on the person. I think a sister is more important than like just a friend you have, for example. So it is very dependent on the person. But there are other people from my old church who left after I did that reached out to me, and we've bonded over that. And we are friends again. So yeah, if it's sincere, if they truly realize what they did was wrong, if they actually do understand, and also it depends on the degree of the transgression. There are some things that I would never forgive, but yeah, when it came to specifically the people who like shunned me, for example, yeah, there's several of them that left after I did and reached out, and now we're pals again. So when it doesn't feel like self-deprecating, forgiveness is great. There are times though where it does feel like you're being a pushover, or it feels like you can forgive the person but not let them back into your life. That's like an important distinction of I forgive everybody who did that to me, but there's a lot of them who, if they came knocking on my door, I wouldn't want them back. It's like, no, I forgive you. I don't hate you, but we're not going to be friends again. That's another level to it.
Yeah. I'm a, me, you said it to me before. I am a pushover actually. With a lot of people. Like I really don't like friction with people in my life, and I'll do whatever to avoid confrontation, which is why the optics of me being so aggro are so funny, because it's like, it's actually not the way I am at all. But when I'm like, I'll take it on the chin so many times from so many people over and over and over again to avoid any sort of confrontation. It's why I've been in such bad relationships. It's why like I'm always find myself in situations that I don't want to be in. So, but this is about more than that to me. It's like, revenge is a dish best served cold, I guess. And I really do believe in that because I'm not going at people. So yeah, I wanted to just bring this up and see what you guys felt about it and kind of speak about it with someone else because I've long been a vocal fan of it, but I just didn't know how people felt. So
does it bother you? Kind of Funny exists 10 years next year, I guess. 10 years.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they'll probably celebrate their 10-year anniversary in January, but we were founded and started doing stuff before that. But I think that's what they count as when we left IGN.
Do you think they'll bring you up? Do you think they'll honor you in some way or at least mention you? Does that bother you?
Maybe I'll get mentioned, but I doubt there'll be anything. Dude, like it's like I haven't reached out to Greg in a long time. He doesn't want to talk to me. That's fine. Nick I talk to once in a while. Kevin I talk to like once in a blue moon. I'll talk to these guys over text. It's just so funny like how seemingly petty the people that have come after me there, like that I don't even know. Like I went and looked some of these people up and like they've blocked me on Twitter and stuff like that. Like when there's stuff used that I would be in, they like just edit me out or edit around me or try to make it so like I'm in it very little. It's fine. I have no expectations of that. Like I left and I don't know that you want to necessarily bring more and more attention to it and harken back to an era, frankly, that was, from my perspective, the most popular era of the programming and something that's never going to be recaptured in some way because it's just not possible. But yeah, I think people are pretty hardened on that at this point. Like I don't expect to be brought up and I don't care. I mean, it truly is what it is at this point. I'm much more concerned about my legacy with IGN than I would ever be about Kind of Funny. Like getting the credit, like it's a much bigger deal that I'm one of the biggest editors to ever work at IGN than Kind of Funny. It's like, so that to me, that being robbed of me in some sense is more painful, like way more painful than anything to do with Kind of Funny. Because Kind of Funny was a brief glimmer. It was 2 years of my life, as opposed to whatever it was, 12 years of my life at IGN. So we'll see. Maybe they'll reach out. I doubt it. All right, let's wrap things up, Locke, with you and your topic. Take it away.
Sure. Well, you guys know that there's a new Assassin's Creed coming called Assassin's Creed Shadows, right?
What?
Yeah,
it's got a black ninja in it.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, they had to change it. They had to change it to Shadows because originally it was just the N word.
Oh my
God! Holy jeez.
Roll that back. Then they changed it to that.
But it takes place in Japan, and I don't care about Japan. I really like Assassin's Creed. You can tell. Okay, well, no comment. I really like Assassin's Creed. I know some of you guys, or maybe all of you, don't like it, but I really like Assassin's Creed. I love the historic aspect of it. So when I saw that it was going to take place in Japan, I was really disappointed because I don't care about that setting. But I really loved, for instance, Odyssey or Origins, especially Odyssey, like Greek mythology. That's really my thing. So I loved playing Odyssey and it taking place there. But then I realized that a lot of people didn't really like Odyssey, or a lot of people didn't really like Origins. So that got me to think like, oh, Assassin's Creed really is dependent on where it takes place and when it takes place and who it takes place with. So when Micah asked me to fill in for Gene, I think 2 days ago, I really started thinking like, oh, what would be my perfect Assassin's Creed game? And I got really deep into it because I had like multiple wikis open and I was really interested in this topic that I was going to pick. And I put so much effort into it. And I wrote like a bunch of notes too. And of course, there are a couple of permutations with Assassin's Creed. Like it has to have Templars, it has to have assassins. It's mostly one location or one country, and it has to have parkour, right? That's basically what Assassin's Creed is. So I had this really cool story. I did my research. I put a lot of effort into it. And my Assassin's Creed would start in 1984 in Charlottesville, Virginia, which is close to where you guys live, I guess?
Yeah, about an hour away.
Yeah. And it would start with like a police inspector showing up to a mansion. And there's this old woman on her deathbed. And he would just ask her, where is it? And she would just rascal. She would just not being able to say anything because she was on her deathbed. And then we would see her name. And her name was Anna Anderson. And do you guys know who Anna Anderson is?
No.
Anna Anderson. That sounds familiar. She's the one that pretended she was the princess Anastasia.
Yes.
Why
Yes,
the fuck do I know that?
Damn
Why
it,
do you know
Locke.
that?
How the fuck do I know that? Anyway, go ahead. That's so weird. That's fucking the weirdest thing I've ever known. Good.
So then my Assassin's Creed game would take place in 1917 in St. Petersburg, right? And it would be all about the Russian Tsar Nicholas II, and we would play as Anastasia or not. There would be like a mystery, right? Like if it's are we really playing as her or not? And then we would have the February Revolution where the monarchy was disposed, and then the October Revolution when the Bolsheviks came in and the entire family got killed. And I would have Rasputin there. Would he be a Templar? And then maybe at the end, the inspector who showed up at the mansion would turn out to be Rasputin, who's still alive because Anastasia has like a piece of Eden. But then at the end, it turns out it's not really her. It's like the assassin that got sent to kill like the Tsar family would take her identity, and then that would be like the end of my story. So I had multiple wikis open. I really put a lot of effort into it. And then an hour before we started the show, I thought like, well, Rasputin is such a well-known villain or person in like history. Surely there is like some Assassin's Creed lore about him. Like he must have shown up in like a segment somewhere at some point. So I Googled Assassin's Creed Rasputin, and that's when I discovered that this game already exists, and it's called Assassin's Creed Chronicles Russia.
Oh, one of the side scrollers.
Yeah. So I put all this effort in for nothing because it literally already exists. Not the same story, of course, but kind of the same story. So I got very pissed off at myself because I quickly had to find something else.
Well, I think that's a good idea, though.
And the title would have been Assassin's Creed Matryoshka, which means like Russian doll, which was such a cool name. But again, it already exists. So I had to scrap all that an hour before we started. And that's when I thought, well, I'll make it easy. We'll do it in Belgium. It starts in 1944, Battle of the Bulge, of course, in the Ardennes, Germany versus the Allied forces. You're playing, this is a little bit different. You're playing as a German soldier, which for some reason hasn't been done before in a video game, which is very weird to me. But he gets captured, and the Allies tell him, like, you have to go to Berlin. You have to go back home to Berlin and basically get this piece of Eden from Hitler, from Adolf Hitler. Have any of you, I presume you guys know The Saboteur, that video game?
Yeah, it's so funny, man. You're like totally in my wheelhouse right now because this is exactly where my mind was. Yeah, that game comes up on Sacred pretty often.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great game. Well, that's it. It would kind of borrow from that, but from the other side. Like we would play a German soldier, but we would infiltrate the Germans. We would be like a spy for the other side, which, to my knowledge, I haven't Googled it, but I hope that hasn't been done before because maybe that's too risky these days. So it would be cool to have interactions with like Goebbels or all these evil Nazi people, and you have to like subterfuge them and break into castles all around Berlin or in the Hitler's Eagle's Nest. And you have all these cool locations in Germany where you could have like lots of parkour and lots of breaking and entry and assassinations, and it would be called Assassin's Creed Downfall, like the movie Downfall, which is a lame title, I guess.
That's where the Hitler video comes from, the famous, right? Yeah. The famous video that everyone edits for him to say different things over it.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, so my question to you guys is, what would be your ideal Assassin's Creed setting? And I want setting, I want your title, I want your character and a little bit of the story.
Well, I'll go first just because it's funny, man. Like when you were telling your Russian story, I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. And I was like, I wonder what he'll think of mine, which was, and I had two ideas. So I'll go to the second one in more depth, but I was thinking of a World War II era Nazi Germany one, which I think would be super cool, specifically in Berlin. And that's the city you're in, and you're kind of just going around and like sabotaging things. And it's funny. I was thinking of the Saboteur as well, which I never beat. So I won't be boring and replicate that, but that's where my mind was going. I was like, oh, cool. He didn't have my idea or World War II. Maybe that's too obvious. But World War II is such a nexus of timelines, basically, in real life about what could have happened. In World War I as well, where the stories you can tell, and World War I obviously more towards the Russian idea because that's during World War I. But there's a lot to be said there. But I guess the other idea I had was the last Assassin's Creed game I played was 3. And I played it for obvious reasons. The setting was super fucking cool. And so I was thinking, like, what else can be done there? And I was like, what about a Civil War one? And this is where things can get really interesting with the Assassins and the Templars and stuff. And maybe they're either maybe on different sides of this war, and how you're kind of, we're here outside of Richmond. You can go to Richmond or go just throughout the South. And I'd love the idea of kind of being like a turncoat in the South and connecting it to the history, both good and bad, of what happened with the Confederacy. Because the Confederacy, for people that don't know their Civil War history, it wasn't that the Confederacy was ever going to win. They didn't ever think they were going to win, but they were putting up an amazingly staunch fight for 2 years or so. And their whole goal was to just make it so painful that it would stop. And they were trying to get Europeans involved. And so I'd like to get in on all of that. Like these Confederates sent emissaries to Europe to try to get European countries to fight the United States, getting all of that stuff. And no one wanted any part of it, by the way. And they called it King Cotton, the idea that like we control the cotton supply and you'll help us for that. But what they didn't calculate for was that they had started growing cotton in India, in British India, and weren't really needed anymore. So everything fell apart. So you can get like this weird cross-Atlantic thing going on with some intrigue and then some stuff going on in the Confederacy, maybe leading up to, I don't want to be too dramatic and like lead up to the end of the war at Appomattox or whatever, but maybe like something leading up to Gettysburg or something would be like really, really cool, like in the middle of the war, where that Gettysburg's where things started to change and the Union started winning like overtly. And so something leading up to that I think would be pretty cool. The Civil War era is ripe for storytelling generally, and I don't really understand why I've seen a few things out there that people think my upcoming game's about the Civil War. It's not. But it would be cool to do things in that space. And since you can't really have a shooter they're not using muskets at that point. I mean, they kind of are, but they're not like blunderbusses. I mean, there's some sophisticated repeating rifles and stuff like that at that point, and even some primitive machine guns. So you can have some shooter combat, but really you would just have a sword, maybe a one-shot pistol and a one-shot rifle that you can reload. And the verticality of Assassin's Creed, I understand, is really important to people, but I think that they did a really nice job in the 1770s in Assassin's Creed 3, where the country was much less developed, even if you were in Philly or in New York. So I think they can get away with something where it would be kind of a smaller thing. Washington's kind of coming to form. It would be even cool, like going across the border and going back and forth between these cities kind of covertly. The intrigue with the Civil War is so fascinating in the United States, and it's so beaten into the ground in terms of film, alternate history, all the kind of stuff, but not so much in games, unless you play like 4X games and shit like that, or like war games where they really get into the battles and all that. So yeah, I would say my big idea was World War II, but I'm not going to replicate. So Civil War, I think, would be the next place I would want to go. Yeah.
Nice. Well, what would you call it? What would the title be?
Assassin's Creed Antebellum or something like that, or something like that would be pretty cool. Yeah.
Assassin's Creed Southern Dandy.
Yeah, Assassin's Creed like Blue and Gray, or you can call it like Blue and Gray, or I don't know, something like that. Or
now that's Pokemon.
Yeah,
that's
right.
what we need. Pokemon Blue and Gray.
Blue and Gray,
Two
right?
versions.
It's the Pokemon with the Civil War in it.
Yeah, choose your side.
And by the way, like in ours, it would be cool. Like you meet Robert Lee, Stonewall Jackson, Jefferson Davis, like whatever the case, and then go to the north and meet some of those guys too. Grant, maybe Lincoln, maybe it all culminates with like the assassination of, like, as it went down with Abraham Lincoln. Maybe we find out that all of that is connected to the plot, the Templars and all that kind of stuff. It'd be pretty cool.
I like that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Brad, let's go to you.
So I don't know if this has been done, but mine would be in the Aztec period. In like
I don't think they have done that though.
So you would be someone living in that era around that time, and of course the Templars would be involved in like the human sacrifices and all that stuff. But then halfway through the game, the Spanish come, so then you have to deal with all that going on at the same time. And of course, you'd have Templars also in that, so it'd be an interesting thing of dealing with the Templars and the Spanish kind of being a third party, and that just kind of invading the whole country and stuff like that. And I think there's a lot of cool jungles you could do, and like forests for environments and stuff like that. I would love if they did something. I don't know if there's been an Assassin's Creed in like South America or
I don't think so.
or anything like that.
Nope.
No.
It's like they won't touch it.
Yeah, it would be that would be super cool. I would love for them to. I love the Wojak meme where it's like the Wojak Aztec priests are sacrificing people, and then there's like the handsome man Wojak comes out with like the Spanish conquistador armor, and it's like the human sacrifices will stop or whatever.
Yeah,
love that meme.
these
people are fucking really crazy. What the Europeans encountered.
They're fucking crazy. And you could like tie in like all their artifacts and shit like that. Some temple, you could have dungeons you go into. Like think of like Assassin's Creed 2 Locke, I think, where they had stuff like that. You go into like those tombs or whatever, good stuff. I want cool shit like that again in there. I know some of the games had like Valhalla, but really emphasize all that cool shit. You can tie in a lot of supernatural stuff in there with the artifacts or whatever. Anything like that. And I kind of would like if you have to like pick a side at the end of the game. You either pick to be with the Spanish or with like the Aztecs, and that just like affects the ending in some way. I think that'd be really cool.
Who do you play as? Do you play
as like a guy from like the Aztec era? He like lives there. I don't know. I don't think they'd have the balls to make you play as a Spanish guy coming over.
That's Greedfall.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I don't think they would do that, Ubisoft.
Dude, a colonial simulator would be so cool if like someone did have the balls to do that. Like imagine like a really bloody, like overtly ridiculous colonial simulator. I feel like that would actually be low key huge if it was done right.
On Steam,
like,
dude.
Just it was mega violent, totally xenophobic, like but comically, like lean into it. Almost like Castle Crashers aesthetic or something. And that would be so funny.
But I think that's what I do. I call it Assassin's Creed like Apocalypse, I guess, or something like that. Because the whole civilization, exactly, and the whole civilization like ends at the end of the game. Or like I forgot what that battle was that would like ended the Empire, the Aztec Empire, but it culminates there in that whole thing.
It's also interesting because the Spanish, like the big empires that the Spaniards encountered were toppled mostly by indigenous people that hated them.
Yeah,
that were armed and led by the conquistadors. I mean, imagine like they were marching through with like a few hundred people and they destroyed these places.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you could choose like a side who you wanted to align with.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be super cool.
Awesome.
I think that's what I'd do. Yeah.
Micah, hit us with an Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start with a little bit of backstory about why I would do this. But the reality is that Locke stole my idea. But let me talk first about Assassin's Creed. I was a huge Assassin's Creed fan. I fell off of it after Black Flag, and I'm going to avoid spoilers, but I'm going to word it this way. The point at which they essentially abandoned the modern day storyline that was starring Desmond is where I fell off the game. When they just pivoted away from the modern day reason why you're doing all this, I just didn't like it nearly as much because that I was totally invested in that storyline, and I was just like, what do you like? And does it still exist? Yes. Like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I played a little bit. It's one of the only newer ones I've played, and it is still there. It's the same premise of like, oh, there's this company that, their front is that it's like historical tourism. The reality is that we're trying to stop the Templars, but it is so far in the background that it's like the real game is playing the history part. The real game is that section. It's no longer about the modern day story. That's what I would want to bring back, because and I wouldn't try to rewrite the original Desmond story because it just got really weird. They started leaning more and more into the supernatural as the games went on, and I just feel like I can't really like retcon that. But what I would do is just kind of replace it with a different modern protagonist. I would have this set after Assassin's Creed Revelations. I loved that game. I loved the online for it. Oh my! I was an Assassin's Creed Online kid. Like I played the shit out of the Assassin's Creed Online modes. They were fantastic. They were so much fun. But I would go back to having a real focus on modern day. And what I wanted to do, I'm not much of a history person. All right. History has never been my thing because so much of it was like memorizing dates, as I've told Colin. And I struggled with that. I really struggled with memorizing things. Like the history quiz would come up, and if you asked what happened at this event, I'd remember it. But if you said, when was it? I would always lose the point on that because it's like, what day was it? I don't remember. But what I did like about history was weird stories, and the game was going to center on Rasputin because when I was a child, there was the Anastasia movie, and I think was that starring like Meg Ryan was the voice? I can't remember, but I loved that Anastasia movie. All right, and Rasputin, a little bit of sex appeal there. All right, a little bit of mystique.
He was supposed to be a freak. He was supposed to be a fucking.
No, he
freaky
was.
dude.
He was. I'm not.
You can see pictures of him.
I'm not okay. I'm admitting that as a child I had a crush on your version of Rasputin, but I don't know what that says about me. I'm not going to talk about it. But what I'd like to do is have a game centered around Rasputin, the last Russian Tsars. It would be cool to kind of fiddle with the fall of the Tsars and the paranormal stuff. You could lean into it with Rasputin because Assassin's Creed has an element, of course, of the supernatural with the Piece of Eden and all that. It's not that I was disappointed that they went like into the supernatural stuff. It's that they just got so weird with it at a certain point that I was like, oh, this feels really different now. It's more of like the Assassin's Creed games to me these days just don't feel the same. It honestly feels like a whole new game series. I kind of wish it was just a whole new game series. It doesn't feel anything like Assassin's Creed, 1, 2, and 3. So I would think it'd be cool to have all the historical stuff. You have Rasputin in there. Whether or not you actually maintain that he did have mystical powers or not would be a cool thing to kind of do at the end. Like you could debunk it, that he's not actually powerful, but he could be. And it would just add a lot of tension, maybe even a slight horror element to having him in there. Like I just see there'd be a lot of cool stuff. And of course, Anastasia being a very weird, kind of legend of some people thinking that she was never actually murdered, that she did survive, make her way to some other country. It's just one of those, enough doubt exists surrounding the story that you can toy with it without it just feeling like complete, nonsense. Because it's like, yeah, there's enough here that a lot of people do believe that she escaped somehow. People genuinely think that maybe at some point she did just live out her life in hiding and die. There's enough there that we could play with it and just have fun. So it was going to be called Assassin's Creed Jewel of the Tsar. And it was going to be that the modern day Templars are looking for this fabled jewel that was said to have given Rasputin his powers. And so now you're going back through the historical timeline to find where the jewel has been hidden before they find it. This is where Anastasia would come into play, of where everything went down with her family. She was able to maybe secret away the jewel from Rasputin and then go into hiding with it. Rasputin loses his powers. He's no longer mystical anymore. And the jewel's lost. And so that would be the goal on both sides of it, is trying to find Anastasia, trying to find this jewel. Locke, I didn't Google it because was like, oh, I don't know. Finding out that they did do some sort of Rasputin story is actually hysterical because it fits perfectly. Yeah. As Assassin's Creed fans, I'm like, hell yeah, this would be awesome. But it's it's a damn shame that it already sort of exists. The cucks at Ubisoft aren't going to revisit it with our ideas, but we had some damn good things going here, Locke. I think we have the real Russian Assassin's Creed game. I think ours is better.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Will the Bolsheviks be in yours?
This is where I'm not a history nerd, and I was just like,
well, the Bolsheviks kill the Tsar, so they would have to be in there somewhere. But that would be what would be so funny and so interesting. Would be have like Lenin in it or something. Yeah. I don't know. Or
you want the Beatles in this? I don't know if I'm going to have the Beatles coming in here. I don't know if that makes any sense. You get John Lennon in there. Now we're getting weird with the history.
Now we're getting weird. Oh, Locke, my game would also be the end of Assassin's Creed. Then they have to reboot it after that because they need to fucking wrap that shit up.
They're doing it right now. I
don't believe them.
Isn't the goal right now is make like the games historic, and then every what's it called? Like the current day stuff is called like Assassin's Creed, whatever. It's like an
I don't
online
know. I don't know what's going on
platform.
anymore. Oh yeah, they had that online platform thing going for that was like years ago though. They were talking about that.
No, but
Infinite
I think,
or whatever, or Infinity. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, but I could be completely wrong. Somebody told me this in a Discord and I didn't research it, so I could be completely wrong. But if I understand it correctly, like all the games will be historic and everything else surrounding it. So you have no more Animus bullshit.
Yeah.
Like all the Animus bullshit is in something else now. If I understand correctly, which is cool, I think.
They just need to wrap that shit up, dude. Wrap those storylines up.
Yeah.
No series spins its wheels more than Assassin's Creed.
No, it's been going, like, I say this because I fucking love Assassin's Creed. But my disappointment in the direction it went in, because they essentially took all your motivation for doing this and were just like, that's not the part people like, so we'll just get rid of it. And it's like, no, that was the part I liked. And now it feels pointless. Now it just feels like I'm fucking cosplaying as a Viking for some goddamn reason. And there's no point. Like, there's no point to it. It's never gonna end. Are we ever gonna beat the fucking Templars? Like, really? I get so mad about Assassin's Creed. Because it really is just like, you made an entire new franchise at this point. You didn't have the balls to name it something different because, you know, Assassin's Creed makes money. So instead of just making a new franchise, you're like, well, let's just call it Assassin's Creed and lightly skin it as Assassin's Creed. Look, you can still jump in a hay pile from a steeple. So that makes it Assassin's Creed. Look, you got a blade coming out of your wrist. It's Assassin's Creed, guys. And it's like, meanwhile, there's fucking Egyptian gods flying around and shit. And it's like, this isn't right. But just because there's a wagon full of hay for you to jump in, they're like, it's Assassin's Creed. You know, it smells the same, doesn't it? It's like, it smells like garbage. And I'm just so upset. So it's like, they can't fix it for me at this point. It's gone too far. But if they really did just wrap up the storyline and start fresh, I'd consider it. But being a fan of these games for so many years, it's like, are we going to win at some point? Are we ever going to see a resolution to this? It's just...
Maybe...
I put up with Ubisoft. I put up with them for the online pass bullshit when you bought a used game and then you had to pay $20 to play online. I put up with all that shit. Yeah. All right? I'm one of their biggest fans. And I'm also one of their biggest haters now.
Maybe you'd like Mirage. I didn't like Mirage, but Mirage kind of ties back to 3 and Desmond. No spoilers, of course, but you could just look it up on YouTube, actually. You don't have to... The game itself is not great, but the story itself, like the current day story, kind of wraps back to the beginning. So maybe that would be cool for you.
But it's just like, remember Desmond? It's like the member berries with that shit. I don't know. Yeah. Just fucking end it, man.
Remember when they got mad at... Who was the woman, the blonde woman who did the voice?
Bell. Kristen Bell?
Yes, and then they got mad at her for saying that video games weren't very important or something, and then they were just like, all right, you're written out of the story. And it's like, wait, that was a good character. And she didn't say she wasn't going to do the games anymore. She just in an interview said something along the lines of not thinking video games were as good as movies or TV, or it was something of that vibe. Yeah. And then they're like, sucks to be you. And it's like, no, she was a good character. There have been many missteps along the way of Assassin's Creed, but I still like have very fondness for it. I really loved the online. I got so into the fucking Assassin's Creed online for years. It's a great disappointment to me that I don't get excited for the games anymore, because I used to just be so hyped.
So you never played Black Flag? Did I hear
I played Black Flag. That's the last one I played. I liked that one. I didn't love it as much as like Assassin's Creed 2 or something, but I did play Black Flag. I enjoyed it. I liked the sea shanties. You know, that was fun. But after that point is where it just started to feel... I watched... The next one that came out after that, was that Syndicate or Unity? Which one was after Black Flag?
I think, yeah. Rogue also.
Yeah, Rogue.
Okay. I watched, my boyfriend at the time play through the one that came after Black Flag, and I was just like, I just don't like the vibe. It just felt like an all new game. It just felt like a complete departure from Assassin's Creed. I'm not saying it was a bad game, but it's like, if I want to watch a Rocky movie and then I turn it on and Sylvester Stallone's playing golf and I'm like, well, this isn't what I had in mind. You know, you called it a Rocky movie because he's in it, but I wasn't expecting him to be golfing. I thought he was going to be beating people up. So that was kind of the vibe of like, I'm not saying it's a bad game, but it wasn't what I wanted from Assassin's Creed anymore. And that's where I really fell off the series. I did play Valhalla for, I don't know, 10 or 15 hours. It was fine, but the motivation to like finish it was kind of gone. And it was fun enough, but I really wasn't into it the way that I was into the Ezio storyline and things like that.
Oh yeah, Ezio's storyline was the best.
Amazing, yeah.
All right, well, Locke, are you satisfied?
Yeah, thank you. Great stories, great ideas. Cool.
Yeah, it was fun. It's interesting that a few of us had the idea of the world wars and Russia and all that kind of stuff. Very cool. Yeah, a few things to get into. Really, there are a million different places they can go, which is what's interesting about the series, but it's too much. It's too many games. I'm just not interested anymore. All right, let's go around the horn. Say goodbye to everyone. That's it for this episode of Constellation. Micah, goodbye to you.
Goodbye. Thanks again to you guys for playing my silly little game with me. I got to read real quick just one of the lines we didn't get to say. Locke sees you approach. Go away, you filthy baguettes, he screams. I was really looking forward to that one. I was really looking forward to that.
Close to realistic, yeah.
Had to throw it in.
Brad, goodbye to you.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was fun talking Legos with you guys and all the other random shit we talked about. Assassin's Creed. I wish I loved it still, but alas, I'm burnt out like Micah. I got burnt out recently though with Mirage. I was like, all right, I'm good. So
it just seems
I
like
won't be back.
Like games like that just suffered from bloat. You know,
yeah,
seems like from
just too many. They were too long. They were very long games too. So I'm good. But yeah, thank you for having me.
And Locke, goodbye to you. Thank you for joining us today.
Go away, you filthy baguettes. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. It was fun. Great game, Micah. Super fun. Great job.
Yeah, this was a good combo of people. So well done. Dagan should be back next week. We'll see at this point. But I appreciate you guys out there, and we all appreciate you listening to Constellation and all of our shows here on Last Stand. Patreon.com/LastStandMedia for early ad-free access and LastStandMedia.store for merch. We'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye. Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer, Dustin Furman, and is edited by associate producer, Ben Smith. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.